Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to HLTV Confirmed. I'm Chad the Spud Birchall. This is episode 14. We've got Prof and Striker either side of me. No Banks, he's off doing other things, so we couldn't quite get him in. And I do actually have the sun beaming in my face because I'm in the UK and the sun's out here all the time. So, Prof, how are you doing? Are you going to gloat early or are you going to save it?
Nah, I'm not in the mood for gloating. Just sad day overall for me. Just sad state of affairs. Not even that
Okay.
win can kind of boost my mood today, it seems like.
Striker, I heard you before saying you need to get a coffee. You're tired?
I don't want to go too much into it, but I started working out today, so I'm pretty screwed at this point.
Okay, so you picked a good day. You picked a Monday like everybody does. It's like,
Exactly.
I had the best intentions today. I was going to get up and do so many things. I went out and had like a lovely breakfast. I was going to come back. The best thing I did today was do all my invoices, so I might get paid for the first time in a very long time. But look, we have a lot of Counter-Strike to talk about. And as I say that, I think maybe we don't have a lot of Counter-Strike to talk about. But we can get kicking off with the breaking news. I don't know if we're still using the soundbite. Are we still doing it, Lucas? Is it still there? Let's kick it off.
Drop it.
All right, so if I don't lag out here, that's going to be pretty good. We're going to start with HellRaisers because in there we had Astralis giving more events. That's probably a longer discussion. We can start with the HellRaisers one. So for those of you who missed it, I'm monitoring my net, and if I drop out, I apologize. But we had is it Nukia? Is that how we're saying his name?
I just call
I
him
have
Rookie
no
because
idea.
it makes more sense. I don't know.
Okay, so we get to be ignorant, and you guys are from almost that part of the world. So if you don't know either, then I'm
Oh,
kind of
what
I,
the
I
fuck?
wouldn't say so. I
Are
wouldn't
you
say
guys
that's
close?
the same
You're
part
all
of the
over
world.
on
No.
that side, somewhere over there.
It's like the
Lithuania
Baltics
is-
and the Balkan, you know? It's the classic
right?
fuck up.
Isn't
Yeah.
I'm
anyway.
closer. I'm
We
closer
have
than
one
Prof.
same letter.
I'm closer than Prof, but not by much.
Okay, because
Yeah.
when we learn stuff in Australia, they don't really teach us much about geography, other than Europe's over there up the top and America's over that side as well. That's about all we learn. But
Seems like an
look,
excuse to me, Chen.
we were talking about HellRaisers when Lau joined the team last time, and we were a bit confused, or we were maybe not confused, but it was an underwhelming signing. And now they've gone, and for those of you who are unaware, today they've announced Nuki or Nukia or something along those lines has replaced Hobbit on the roster, who is now up to be transferred. And that means that they've forfeited their spot towards the major, unless Dead
Or
Fox,
did they?
yeah, or did
Oh,
they?
did
What do you
they?
think?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there was a post from HellRaisers on VK saying that they did I lag out? Am I okay?
No. You're good.
I think you're good.
I'm good. Saying that they just replied to someone like some fan saying like the major spot is secure or something like that. So I don't know how like legit that is, who's posting that, but feels like they have some plan to keep that spot in some way
Or
another.
they're just about as ignorant as Cloud9 are, and are just not entirely sure about what the rules are. That's another. I'm sure that's a possibility as well.
I think it's
It
probably
is.
more likely they'll be trying to play games surely after the Cloud9
Yeah.
thing they've learned, right? You would hope.
Yeah, I imagine they've definitely thought about it, because that's just something that has to immediately come into your mind when you start thinking about a change that will see you lose the major core. So there must be some sort of a plan, and I mean it would make sense if it was Dead Fox who would just like basically sit it out on the bench for the next whatever 5 months, because we don't expect him to get bought out into some other team that speaks English, or even if he was going back to Hungary, it's probably unlikely that a team like that is going to be able to buy him out. So I imagine HellRaisers will just be able to use him for the major, even if like Valve actually changed the rules and didn't allow them to do the swap that we saw Cloud9 do at the last major. So I could see that
So you
happening.
think-
It's definitely not ideal.
Do you think they're just going to use them as the fifth, and someone is going to stay out for the major?
Well, I mean,
That's
as long
like
as
their plan.
as long as Valve change the rules, right? Because if they don't, they might as well just do whatever Cloud9 did and actually play with this team after swapping out Dead Fox for whoever, one of the new additions, one of the three new additions, right? So that's like they have two options depending on whether Valve actually do something about this stupid rule or not.
I think that like the whole Dead Fox thing just being on the bench, and it seems like no one's going to pick him up at all, even if he was not that if he was a free player, but it would just be difficult because he was that supportive element. He never really focused on himself that much, so he never did a good job of selling himself, at least in the public eye. I think as a teammate,
Yeah.
the guys on the team would probably attest to him being a good teammate, but we've seen how far that gets people. I think what's more curious here is Stiko's always on that no chance team where this Nokia guys come from. And Seiko would have had the offer to join HellRaisers again at some point, and I think that he probably turned that down. And they've just gone for one of his teammates. So I remember watching when it wasn't Valiants. What were they called? Fuck.
Binary,
It was
Binary Dragons.
No, it had Esperanto
Imperial?
on it as well. Yes,
Imperial?
Imperial. I remember they were at a Star Series, maybe season 6. It would
I
have
think
been.
it must have been 6, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy who they picked up was the AWPer. So if I remember rightly, he was the
Yeah.
AWPer. So they picked up another AWPer here alongside of that with Oscar. Now, when we look at HellRaisers of old, they had Woxic doing the lion's share of AWPing duties, and Dead Fox would do a little bit of secondary, right? So I'm curious to see how they going to go about this. Like what kind of approach Angel's looking for the team, because it's curious to go for. Sure, this kid's an up and comer, a youngster, someone who hasn't played top tier Counter Strike just yet, but it's a curious pickup with the role in regard.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna check. I think he kind of
No,
moved
he is.
away from the op.
I mean,
Yeah.
he has like something like 30% with the op career-wise. I could
Yeah, but
go
last 12 months it's 22%,
to 2019.
and 6 months it's
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Actually, in
he's not
2019
even
he
upping
hasn't.
it, though.
Yeah, exactly. I was
Okay,
gonna
so
say.
he was in team with Makalele as well. So when you consider that, Makalele's probably doing the lion's share of the AWP you do. So he's moved off of that role, away from that. So then I guess he could do the hybrid stuff still. He could pick it up when necessary for the team. So that kind of dispels that very quickly. But I think what's an important thing to talk about here is Isa's tweet that came out, Prof. And I know that you read that one. I'm trying to give the viewer a bit of a synopsis of what he said.
Well, he didn't say much.
I don't have it handy. It was just give me a
Well, just what is going on, basically. That was
Yeah.
it.
We need it verbatim,
what-
all right,
what-
for quoting people.
No,
Yeah,
it,
we
it
need to
was
do it
literally
verbatim.
what is going on.
Yeah,
Maybe
don't
something
know-
additionally.
Don't know what is going on right now, and a few emojis crying, like sideways face, and like this guy emoji. So that's the combination he went for. He's obviously not really sure what's going on with the team at the moment. Like obviously they played with Lowell maybe a week. They have no HLTV matches, but they did play the we play Forge whatever some online tournament, CIS tournament, and I don't know what their results are, but I know Vega beat them and stuff like that. So they had a week with a new player, decided to kick Hobbit and make the change. So it's pretty weird, like how they approach this whole thing, because obviously Nookie was probably an option 2 weeks ago as well. Like he isn't contracted to no chance. That's just a
that's
orderless
non-org.
team. So kind of a lot of confusion going on there.
I mean, honestly, just because I know a little bit from the background, it's not that surprising to me, because I heard already like a couple of months ago that Hobbit was potentially on the way out because he didn't really want to be on a European team. Like speaking English probably didn't really match up to his expectations. Hasn't really worked out, I guess, for him. So from that perspective, I guess I can understand that they just were waiting for an opportunity to swap him for somebody who made sense. So maybe they found that player in Yuki. So from what I know, this has been in the works for at least a couple of weeks, months. So it's not that surprising. It's just for HellRaisers, it was just probably rough to get somebody as a replacement, because they already made 2 changes, right? We were talking about that.
The question is, where can Hobbit possibly go, right? There's not that many options for him. I don't think he's lived up to any hype around him at all, right? He's just been a run-of-the-mill player. Like, he's rated at the moment as 1.06, but there's not a single game he played in HellRaisers where I was like, yeah, cool. Like, he's living up to old Hobbit when we remember him on Cobble in Gambit, just wrecking people from the Hobbit hole. I think Matt and Henry coined it.
No, I mean he's basically been the same as towards the end of with Gambit, where he had a couple of really good games, and then generally he's just been pretty underwhelming. So that was kind of the case with HellRaisers as well.
I mean, is the Avantgarde team really an option? I'm not sure. Maybe like in 3 months.
They just added a player, right?
Yeah,
Sanji.
that's the thing. But I don't think they paid a buyout or anything for him, so they can just might as well replace him again. Like, why not? probably could do it, but I don't know.
Also, Gambit are missing a player technically.
Our
he
Gambit,
could go back.
Bondik's gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
our
right.
Gambit
apparently.
actually a team? That's the
That's
question.
that's the question.
I'm
also,
not really sure.
Also, if you were in Hobbit's position, would you actually come back? I doubt it.
Aren't they missing two players? I read something that Axel or Axiel or Axel, whatever, however you pronounce it, was playing for the youngsters team.
That was just for the Copenhagen Games tournament.
Okay.
He's just going to stand in for, I don't remember who. Because
Well,
the
you know how
youngsters
we
team is
talk
basically
about-
a bunch of no-namers.
We talk about some of the worst decisions of players, right? Of when they've moved or like left a team for a different team. I think Mia has to be up there, like at least in the top 5.
That
of the
definitely
last,
didn't
you
pay
know,
out, did it?
It's such a, like, he was the best player on that team. Like, he was fucking wrecking. So, like, gets the chance to go to Gambit, and then Gambit just fucking shits the bed. Dozy's doing something now, fucking detailing people's cars or some shit. Who the fuck knows what's going on? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of folks coming out from them, at least from the Counter-Strike side of things. So maybe Hobbit with a bit of reunion with Mo, and they build something new. I don't know. There's a lot of teams right now in the CIS region who have a lot of skilled players. So maybe there is a chance with someone with experience like Hobbit to get on in there. It's just really weird right now because the window of time before the minors it's closing pretty quickly, even though it feels like there's a bit of a lull in tournaments at this current stage.
I think there's definitely a time. This is the time for CIS to go into somewhat of a shuffle of their own, because it's been a long time since we saw like a third kind of team, or like even a second team. Obviously, with HellRaisers not even being CIS for a while now. So it's been a while since we saw a team live up to that region, basically, because Vega, they attend some tournaments every now and again at the major. They do well, not even last time, so that's one of the reasons why they also changed a couple of players. Then sure, you see Spirit now, but I don't see them reaching like a very high peak. I don't see them being on the edge of top 10 anytime soon. I don't think that's going to happen, even though they are on the way up. So there's a lot of talent there. It's just they're all on the wrong team, basically. So if it all came together somehow in some team, it would be pretty cool. But I'm not sure that Hobbit will actually make that cut, though.
Yeah. Well, do we have anything else on this little HellRaisers shuffle-rooney that's going on? Or?
What is going on with HellRaisers and ESL Pro League? Like, what is their roster going to be there? Because I think can they actually do the change? I read somewhere, I didn't go and check it. That was in the middle of something, but I read that they have Hobbit instead of Lowell signed up, and now they have a new player coming. Not Hobbit, I mean Dead Fox instead of Lowell. Oh. And then Hobbit now is changed, so I have no idea what's going on. That's something that needs to be kind of double-checked, triple-checked, and see what's going on there.
I don't know. I'm not speaking from a position of authority here, but I would assume now that it's moved into a system where it's offline groups, there's probably not too much rigidity, I don't know if that's a word, around the roster locks for the Pro League at this point. So I would assume once you play with your team, and I assume there's rules where you can't like take somebody who's already played in a group. I'm making this stuff up. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what's the most logical situation.
Yeah.
But for them coming into this, I'd assume that they can just, whatever their roster is a few days before should be okay. And then as long as they have something similar, if they make it through to the second stage, or it should be the same players they signed up then have to play in the second stage. I don't know how many players you can sign up. I'm sure I can find out. I can go knocking on some
The problem
doors
is we don't really have a rule book anywhere. That's the problem. Like, we've been searching for it. Like, basically everybody at HLTV has to try to search for it somewhere. Haven't been able to find it, so that's an issue as well. It's just we can't really check this kind of stuff without going directly to the organizers.
Well, we'll see if we can fix that one so we can get the information forward.
Based on previous rules, though, like based on Pro League rules in the last season, where, like you say, it obviously wasn't on LAN yet. I don't think he would be able to play. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember exactly.
All the rules, there's a roster lock, like a window of time before the season started, right?
But yeah,
the reason for that is in league play where everybody plays everybody, it makes more sense because you don't want the rosters chopping and changing throughout the season. But here, because each team's season is kind of completed within the space of 3 days, unless you win and then you come back for a further 3 days later on down the track. Your roster, it's not as imperative because you're not going to have any massive changes against opponents, right? So there's a couple of things to keep in mind with that there. But all in all, I don't know. I'm speaking out of my ass here. I think it will probably be fine. Do we want to? We could stay on this topic, or we could move on to the Astralis point.
We just got the confirmation in chat from Nuki himself that he's playing EPL.
There we go.
What
Okay.
That's
Can
HLTV
he tell us
confirmed
how
right
he
there.
wants us to pronounce his name?
He
Yes,
probably
how do you
can.
pronounce your name? I'm sure we've
It would be
answered
better
this.
if he could just join TeamSpeak
Yeah,
and
just
have
come
a
on
chat with
TeamSpeak.
us.
Does anybody have a direct contact?
Someone in chat like 5 minutes ago said like Striker looks buff. Did he start like working out or
What
something?
the?
Holy
It's
shit!
an
I
obvious-
didn't realize
It was an
literally
obvious.
started-
I think it's an obvious joke. He got me. It's so good. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
more or
not-
less it on the HellRaisers.
All right. So
it
we
is.
can move
So
on
it
from
is
that discussion.
Nukia.
Nokia?
Based on
boy.
yeah.
That's what I was saying. So I was right for
Yeah,
once.
yeah,
Normally
yeah.
I'm wrong every single time. All right. So the one that we had here that we wanted to talk about next, and I'm not necessarily part of the breaking news, but maybe something that we only skim over. I don't feel we need to go into too much detail on it. Is the Astralis skipping of the events? So for those of you who aren't aware, the next couple of months is going to be relatively bleak in terms of having Astralis and actually Na'Vi. If you look at their tournaments, but you have to consider Na'Vi just did play in Star Series Season 7. Yep. So I think it's the major. Was the last tournament with best of threes as the majority of the format that Astralis have played in. And it will be the last event until ECS, I believe, which they've already qualified for. So there's quite a big break there in time. Na'Vi as well, so like I just mentioned, they did play in Star Series Season 7, but the next time that we will see them they're not in Dallas either, right? And they're definitely not going to qualify for ECS. I don't think they've even signed up for the next week, which we were talking about a few days ago. So
that whole thing.
Yeah, for them, what are we looking at? It has to be Pro League finals.
EPL, yeah, they're playing EPL groups, and the group is pretty stacked. It's Fnatic, G2, Windigo,
Yes.
Na'Vi. So even if they could theoretically not go through that group, it wouldn't be like a massive surprise. It would be like a surprise, but not the biggest one. So
A classic
who knows?
Na'Vi situation, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, especially it's not an important tournament, not that much hype. But yeah, I mean, at least they need to
Probably
not
doesn't
be
much
last.
help. What the fuck?
I mean, for the
The
group stage.
land, the tournament of the land.
Well, yeah, of
like
course.
they have to
It's,
turn up
but
and
the,
fire
but the
up.
implications are obviously big. So
Yeah, but you don't know.
I mean, that's one of the
game.
biggest tournaments that you want to attend. Basically, like sure, if you skip like a Dallas or like a DreamHack Masters or something, but this is like what is it, 750,000? Bigger than almost anything but a major, basically. So that's definitely not a tournament you wanna skip out on.
What's curious as well here is, I think, to talk about more so, like, because a lot of people were bringing like the whole conflict of interest debate into things, and that's nothing that I want to get stuck into at the moment with the Astralis. You guys can feel free, but the big thing here is for me that is curious by skipping Sydney and skipping Dallas. Okay, sure, they're both a relative distance away from Europe, right? It's not close by any means, but that's two Intel Grand Slam events.
Yep.
Yeah, right? If they had gone to those, and they're still right now at the peak of their power, even though they did make it to the final in Blast, but we can talk about that when we get to it. They're still at the peak of their power, and if they could, do it back to back real quickly, why wouldn't you? Because eventually teams are going to catch up, right? So they've already won one. Their window to win two could have actually come to, if they went to Sydney, they won there. They went to Dallas, they won there. Then they had Pro League finals, they won there. They could have won another $1 million, but 7 months into the year? It would have been fucking bananas, right? So I look at it like it's a bit disappointing that we won't see them in best of threes until ECS, and we won't see them in best of threes against other decent teams. When I say other decent teams, I mean all the other good teams in the world until Cologne, which also may or may not have all of the good teams, maybe one or two omissions there. So likely we won't get all of the teams who are currently at the top playing against one another until the next major, which is in Berlin in September. So there's going to be quite the drought of seeing a lot of the good teams going toe-to-toe, at least in the best of three format. We're going to have Madrid for Blast again soon. So we'll get to see them play again there, but it's just the best of ones. What do you guys take on this?
I mean, it's definitely not great, just because every time Astralis is not at the tournament, it's a little bit less legitimate, right? Like whoever wins it is basically, but what if Astralis was here? Would they actually be able to take them down in the final? That's the problem that I have. And I'm just going to touch on what Sadek has brought up, and I think that was a really good point about the conflict of interest that is going on with Blast, basically, which is, you have to think, is a part of the reason why Astralis are skipping some of these events. Because obviously those three, what is it, how many Blast stops? 3 more Blast stops?
There's meant to be
With
7 blast stops,
LA,
right?
Madrid, and am I missing something? I don't think so. The one
Depends
that
on what's
happened
been
now,
announced.
basically.
Yeah.
Miami. Yeah, so with those events being there, like we said, or like I said last time when we were talking about this issue, kind of brushing off on it, I didn't see it as that surprising considering like the locations that they have to go through. They would just skip, well, they would skip half of the events, but it wasn't that massive. The problem is that what Cedric has brought up was exactly this deal legitimizing issue that Blast or Refresh could easily take advantage of, and kind of try to bring down some of these tournament organizers to legitimize their own events instead. So that's definitely a legitimate issue that I see with what Astralis is doing.
Prof?
Striker just got cut out on
Yeah,
my side.
no. I was
Here,
just got stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, yeah, I agree with the whole thing. It's not even annoying. It's just depressing and bad that we'll have. It's literally could be Cologne, could not be Cologne, could be first major and second major of the year. Only tournaments in 8 months that we have all of the top teams, and playing like a real format, not this blast best of one bullshit, like show match, exhibition tournament style, whatever it is, because it's not a real tournament in what we have now in CSGO. So
Yeah.
that really does make you think about like what is going on in the scene as it is right now.
Yeah, I think it's a very curious one. Just to play maybe devil's advocate for a second here, if Astralis wasn't the best team in the world and then they were still doing this, then it obviously wouldn't have as much sway, right? It wouldn't affect the other tournaments in the same way that we're considering right here. It's in a way, like the way we're looking at it now, a happy coincidence in that regard. But I guess that's the way it is right now. Astralis are the best team, and I do agree. Not having them at a tournament always leaves us with the question mark of how good actually were Na'Vi when they won that tournament, or say if Liquid win a big one, and let's say Liquid win Sydney, it's like, well, they didn't have to beat Astralis, so we're always going to have that, unfortunately. But I think what they're actually doing by skipping all of these big ones is actually tarnishing their own legacy, because they just lost Blast, right? Let's say they go to the next Blast and they don't make it to the final there either, right? They bomb out again. Okay, well, we're still going to be like, oh, well, it's not best of threes. How long do we do that before we start going, are Astralis like just looking for money fights? Like when you look at like in the sense of the UFC, is it just like they want to do a Conor McGregor and fucking just go to tournaments that they know they can get bang for buck kind of thing? Are they worried about legitimately coming up time and time again? Like, do they want to be like a fucking John Jones who just wants to get in the ring and obviously not doing the drugs and getting banned, but getting in the fucking ring and just going for it, just getting stuck in week after week? Now we know that there are health issues with players in the team. We also know that attending every event is bad as well. But you're traveling quite a distance, regardless. Like they just went to Miami, they went to Brazil. There's events that they're going to that are a decent distance away. And my question, Mark, is more around them. If they just drop off the face of the earth, then it didn't really feel like they put up too much of a fight, right? Because they're just going to simmer off. They're going to kind of disappear from our thought process. So they're still going to be the best team in our minds, especially when you look at Blast and we're going to say, well, they lost in best of ones, they lost this, they lost that. We're always going to have those little things there. But it's like when Na'Vi, Liquid, Renegades, ENTS, let's say FaZe and MIBR get back to decent form, we have those teams going toe-to-toe, giving us some exciting Counter-Strike, and one of them steps up and starts winning all of these that they're going to, then the narrative has to shift, right? Like Astralis start becoming a thing of the past in our minds, because even if they are going to the Blast events, which do a fantastic job of producing a stadium event for those 2 days, they do a great job. We have a very stringent way we look at Counter-Strike now. Best of ones are their own discipline, best of threes are their own discipline, best of fives, I know Prof doesn't like it, it's his own discipline in a way. And if you're not competing against the best teams on a regular basis, you're not really defending your crown anymore, right? So that's just my little question mark there.
Yeah, I mean, just look at I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just trying to say that, like, if they don't win Madrid, even like if they go out in groups or whatever, It's going to be 2.5 months from Sao Paulo to ECS season 7 finals.
Yep.
That will be 2.5 months without a big tournament win. So you can just imagine like what that will do to their ranking and to everything. Like they could easily lose the number 1 spot if someone else wins like everything that's there. Maybe not easily because they're so much ahead of everyone, but it could at least put them in contention. Like, are they actually the best team right now?
And just quickly, Strike, I'll let you jump in a sec, but a point here that can be made, because now both ECS and Pro League have changed their formats, Pro League moving to LAN and ECS actually having a much better format, which has made online Counter-Strike exciting again for me. There isn't a chance for Astralis just to have tune-up matches online in the official environment anymore. That's been completely removed from it. It's not a weekly league that they can play in anymore, unless they want to go play in the fucking doldrums of tournaments that HLTV.org aren't covering anymore, right? So they've kind of, it's not that they've shot themselves in the foot, it just means they have less opportunities now to actually be in the limelight competing. So I don't know if that's going to have an effect on them at all.
I mean, I'm not sure that they are in any real danger of losing the number 1 spot in the next couple of months, just because, let's say Liquid would probably have the best chance of taking them down at this point, right? Because they're something like they're second with something like 380 something points below. So if they win Sydney, they're probably going to close the gap a little bit more. But then there's like Madrid. Are they in Madrid? They're at least not as far as we know thus far. There's only 4 teams announced at this point.
One of them's a qualifier team.
But then there's Dallas, where Liquid are. So sure, if Liquid win 2 of those 3 events, I guess I could see them being able to put up a fight against Astralis in the number 1, and they're in the race for number 1. But knowing Liquid and seeing how they lost this Miami, for example, I don't think that's going to happen. So, and neither do I see Navi making that, or like winning a couple of events out of 3, especially with Liquid at those events and kind of the implications of those matchups. So I don't really see that Astralis are actually gonna lose the spot for number 1, but obviously we will still be wondering about, where do they actually stand if they lose the next blast in Madrid.
Yeah.
So that's
the thing. Like, you can't really say they had, like, let's say they go back and after Blast they go to ECS, they win more tournaments and they're the number 1 for the whole year.
Yep.
Can you actually say that they are like the best team over a 2-year span when like 3 months they didn't win anything and they played 1 tournament in that, or 2 Blast tournaments over 3 months? It just doesn't really hold up to being like defending your title of being the best team in the world.
The thing is, like, we probably expect teams to kind of go back and forth and not have just like a clear number 2, as we saw in last year. Basically, we for a part of the year, FaZe were kind of in a good spot because they won like 3 events sure with standards and shit, and then Navi were really consistently like making semifinals almost all the time. Towards the end, it was Liquid kind of like taking over that mantle of the second best team. So we always had like teams kind of like taking turns and being in second place. So we always knew that Astralis were better than any of them because none of the other ones really stepped up to beat everybody under them. So I feel like that's going to happen here as well, especially given what we've seen so far with FaZe now taking an event out of nowhere, basically Liquid again not being able to win in a final, and Navi winning the previous tournament where Astralis weren't. So I feel like this is just going to continue, and that's why I don't think Astralis will ever be in danger of even losing what you're talking about, like a two year long stance on number 1.
What about the Navi factor here? Because they're also going and skipping Dallas, or they won't be in Dallas. So they're up for discussion in the same way. They most likely won't be at the ECS finals. Do we think that some of these teams are choosing to take extended little breaks right now? Obviously, we know Electronics just had a child because the player break in the middle of the year has been cut down by a week or 2 weeks because of the major cycle. Do we think this is something that they're getting ahead of now so they can dedicate more time in that kind of a window, or this is just a happy coincidence?
I think it's just, I mean, from talking to Simple and from the interviews that we saw, they're clearly going on a more of a organized route. Trying to take a bit more of the Astralis approach, getting on some more people and stuff like that. So it's obviously like that's not coincidental. That's just a response to what Astralis is doing and trying to battle them for that #1 spot at some point. So sure, that I can see where they're coming from. And to be honest, like Dallas, if they only skip Dallas and don't make it to ECS, which is like you say, pretty likely at this point.
I mean, they aren't even playing ECS.
They aren't even playing. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that because they are one of the few teams that aren't there out of the big ones. But yeah, obviously they don't even play that, so they're not gonna. That's not by choice that they don't make it there, right? And ESL Pro League, we'll see. Like we said, they have a pretty hard group coming up, so they might not even make it to the finals. But like obviously, we expect them to.
I really don't understand like why they're skipping Dallas. Just because like the ECS tournament is after Dallas, and they're not in ECS, so that's not the reason they're skipping Dallas. There's nothing really before it. Madrid ends like May 11th, and this starts May 28th. So there's 2 weeks between that. I don't understand like what are they? It must be something along the lines.
That'll be something personal,
of what you're saying, Sponge. Just like taking a break early, so they don't take a break later in the before the.
You think about how much time they have right now, right? So they're obviously all traveling back from Miami yesterday/today, getting home probably on the Monday due to the time differences. So now it's what is it? It's a week and a half until Sydney, basically. 2 weeks basically, because my travel days are a little bit different.
They're not in Sydney either, by the way.
No, so it's. Let's just round up and say it's 3 weeks to Madrid. So 3 weeks at home now until Madrid. The Madrid is literally just a 2-day tournament. Yeah, you're right. That is 3 days as well. Okay, so there is a little bit more moving around there. Yeah, maybe it is just taking a little bit of foot off the gas in that regard, because the player break in the middle of the year, at least this year, I'm hearing murmurs that for next year things are going to get changed in terms of the major windows. But at the moment now, the year is kind of just going to keep going. Doesn't feel like there's going to be a stopping point, especially if you want to win the major and you're one of the challenger teams, right? You may as well just fucking boot camp the whole way through, stay in Europe in summer, and then let it fizzle out towards the end of the year. But all right, I think we've talked enough about this one. Anyone have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, we'll just monitor and see what's going on. I mean, in the end, the Astralis is going to win the next blast and their group and whatever, and no one's going to care, and it's all going to be.
They are going to win their Pro League group, to be honest.
Yeah,
the whole Pro League
group is.
They don't have a realistic opponent there, especially with HellRaisers now making changes as well. There's absolutely none.
Do you guys think though that the actually we'll wait for Miami. Fuck that. Let's get on to the next segment. So we're gonna go over to the GG.bet Master Better. Sounds like Master Beta. So we'll get Lucas to bring up all the graphics here, but first and foremost, this segment is brought to you by the sponsor of the show, which is GG.bet. Remember to gamble responsibly. And if you have just joined us, this is where Prof and Striker go toe to toe in seeing whose Counter-Strike brain is biggest or who has the bigger balls with money that they actually don't have.
Who's less bad? Who's less bad?
Yeah,
exactly. Who's less bad at betting based on the graph that you're seeing on screen right now? Because Prof won one. I won one at the start. Prof won one last time. And other than that, we've just lost how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bets. So not doing very well, are we?
So is this going to be the final week?
We said it would. We said it would be.
We still don't have like a forfeit of any kind.
We can decide now. So viewers at home, tweeted us. So we did. It was hot sauce last time, right?
Yeah. I guess bug eating shit is kind of disgusting.
No,
I like the bug idea. Okay. I think a food thing of some variety is probably a good way to go with it, regardless. So we'll get
like the Swedish fish thing.
That's possible. But we'll get some ideas coming through and we'll work something out for next week. But there's something on the line here, and one of you is going to have to suffer at some point. So who are we going to start with here, Lucas? We doing Prof or we doing Striker? Let's start with Striker because I feel that he probably is going to have a lot more explaining to do.
Do I?
Well, in this situation right here, I just think that you failed last time, so I want you to really go through what you're feeling this time, and then Prof can come through and tell you why you were wrong.
I mean, to be honest, last time, if you remember, I had Renegades to beat United, which didn't work out, but in the end, it didn't really matter. Like, sure, it was my bad. I didn't think of all the context there, but I also lost the one that
G2 Epsilon.
G2 Epsilon, yeah, that was stupid
Easy
as well.
win for G2.
But then Astralis and IBR, that's the one that I lost as well from from the ones that I thought were pretty much locks. Can we stop this music, please? It's really breaking my thought process here. There we go. But yeah, we can go on. Yeah, I can start. I can go on my last slip of this. Well, I don't want to call it a season since not really, but whatever. Okay, Pro League. FaZe versus Heroic. I think that's pretty obvious. FaZe running on a high from their win. At Blast, I think their confidence is just at its highest point that it's been in probably a very long time. So I don't see them losing to a team like Heroic, who sure have had some streaks of looking pretty good. Even at GGBet, I thought they looked a little bit better than I thought they would. But obviously not a team that we expect to go toe to toe with some of the elite teams. And FaZe sure haven't really looked like an elite team for a long time, but now, like I said, running on a high of confidence. So don't expect them to lose that one. Fnatic G2, I was surprised with the odds that were there, because G2 actually had better odds of beating Fnatic.
How does this work?
Sorry?
How does that work? I did not see half of these
I didn't
because I did it last minute.
I didn't understand why Fnatic had such high odds, because the G2 were at something like 1.8 or something. So sure, like if this was like a couple of weeks ago, before we saw Fnatic at Star Series, I would have probably been a little bit too cautious, a little bit more cautious about this one. But considering that they kind of returned to the form that we expect from them, I think they should have the upper hand against G2. Sure, that one's gonna be the make or break really for me, because I think that's by far the most risky that I went for. Even the odds kind of say it. Although it should be a little bit more skewed towards Fnatic rather than G2 in this case. Not sure what GBet are doing in that case. But yeah, I'm kind of jumping on the chance of grabbing some pretty high odds on a match that I think is fairly favored towards Fnatic. And that's, by the way, Pro League as well. That's Group C. Lastly, basically Liquid to win all of their matches in their group of ESL Pro League over in North America. I just don't see them losing to any of these teams. None of these North American teams have really given me any confidence in them. So I don't think they will be the team like Liquid, who have been really consistent at beating teams that they should. So that's my thinking. Pretty solid odds overall. I think like 4.5. Went for a max bet. Sorry.
There's probably an outside chance to make an argument for Ghost, right? I think Lazarus and Complexity have to stand in with nothing because Ricky's having some trouble with the visa situation.
More visa problems, yes.
Yeah, and that was
everyone's having visa issues.
It was interesting. I see that. We can talk about it more when we get to the segment. But Bryce, one of the esports lawyers from the United States, made a tweet about saying how it's getting more difficult. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so you put a lot of faith in Liquid here.
Yeah, I just think that they should be winning that group convincingly. Yes, I also stopped at Ghost and was a little bit cautious and almost didn't include them there. But still, I feel like Liquid should win that matchup in like 8 out of 10 cases at worst. So sure, especially when it's best of threes. Like I don't see Ghost beating Liquid over a best of 3 unless it's a really bad day for Liquid. That shouldn't happen on normal days. So that's my thinking there. Obviously, I had to go a little bit more risky just because this is the last one. I actually want to win something to end it as well. So yeah, max bet 60, almost $67, something like 4.5 odds. Total chance of winning about $300. So there we go.
Good shit. It's essentially whoever wins, because my winning is more or less the same. It showed up.
I'm a little bit ahead as well though.
I really did not prepare for this. I totally forgot about the bet, so I just did it last second. I was scrolling. I saw Boot playing against Entity, and Boot hasn't been playing that well. But at the same time, I know Entity is in Serbia right now because like half of the team is Serbian, and they're boot camping or whatever they're doing. So they're going to be playing Asian servers, and they should have like 300 ping, and that should be a win. Except if they just like...
How do you fucking get on these matches every now and again? Like... You always come to one match. You always find like one match that just has this like weird kind of circumstance that I'm not even realizing, just this most random match ever.
Look, that's
What is that
what you
even?
need to be
What's
on the
match?
ground floor with the homies, getting the info all the time. That's how it works. That's how you
true.
get. That's how you actually make money on this.
I was when
Probably
I saw
not.
that matchup, I was thinking Entity is not an Asian team technically.
Yeah, I mean there are like 3 Indians and 2 Serbians
Oh yeah,
and a
that's true.
Serbian
Now
coach.
they're three. But the
They play like
organization
the
is,
Indian
is
championships. And...
Macedonian, right? Or it used to be.
No,
anyway.
this is a different entity.
This is a different entity.
Indian
Ah,
entity.
okay.
Yes.
But
This
they have two
entity
Serbians.
is not the same entity of the Macedonian organization,
okay.
legendary 1.6
yeah.
name or whatever. Yeah. So along, just like moving along, FaZe to beat Devils 1, like okay, 1.16. I missed like half of these matches, like the Fnatic one I didn't even see. Liquid to beat Lazarus, like expected as well. I went for Ghost to beat Complexity, 2.11 odds, I think, with the stand-in situation and Ghost. They lost like a couple of best of things online, but I think they're still a team I kind of believe in. And then Wendigo to beat No Chance, also a random online match I saw with No Chance now losing a player. Wendigo is pretty solid. Why not? But that's it. And
we both have like one risky match in there. That's
Yeah.
probably going to be the make or break for the both of us. Although we went a little bit riskier with Ghost, I think.
the thing is, if we both lose, we'll literally be on like €1 difference.
How much is it? If we both lose, we're
I'm
going to be
58. You're
we're 16 bucks. I'm 16 euros ahead at this point, so I'm going to win either if we both lose or if we both win. So basically, you need to win and I need to lose for you to win this time.
So there's something called, well, we don't know what's on the line here yet, but this one is a bit more clear cut in terms of, oh, has my webcam died?
I think your webcam's down. Yeah.
You look like you're
I was wondering about like that expression that you're just holding the same expression for a little bit too long.
But my light went off. Alright, we can fix it. Anyway, Lucas, you still there? Can you get me back in this call?
Oh yeah. Get him back.
I think I just joined the call. Alright, cool. So we fixed it. I don't know how that died, but we're back in this. I got the blurred background again. But look, we have to mention again, this is the GG Bet sponsor segment of the show here. Remember to gamble responsibly, and more importantly, make sure you tweet them, put in the chat right now, email it, get HLTV forums going. What is the forfeit going to be between Striker and Prof for the loser to make it something that is live on stream, which is usually edible challenge, and we'll see where we go from there. But now we can move forward, and we can actually go on to Blast Miami. Now, we should probably start with the fantasy draft that we did. I don't know if I can get that up as quickly as possible, but we can start at that point and then we'll work our way backwards into the tournament, because there's a couple of bits and pieces that went on in that tournament where it was overlapping while I was doing a Pro League broadcast. I didn't get a chance to watch all the matches. I did my absolute best to watch as many as I could, but I was surprised, I guess, namely that there was a bit of resurgence from two teams that we had completely not written off, but that it was over, going, oh yeah, well, we feel like they can come back. Both the side of MIBR, I was going to say SK still, and FaZe have in recent times, not really shown us too much to get excited about. And both these teams had some interesting results coming through in this tournament, right? I think that's the standout of this. Liquid getting to the final and flopping, well, that's another question mark, but for me, it's the FaZe and the MIBR discussion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, touching on FaZe firstly, just because they won the tournament, so let's focus on them first. This really, obviously from the second day, because on the first they just looked like the FaZe that we kind of knew from the previous tournaments as well. After Star Series and flopping there, when I saw those first couple of matches that FaZe played, I don't really remember who they were against, but it wasn't Astralis because they beat Astralis on the second day.
They lost to Liquid and someone else, and they tied with MIBR.
Oh yeah, that's right. Tied with MIBR, lost to Liquid. Didn't really look too convincing, right? So after that, I thought they're 100% out. There's no way they will come back. Then they beat Cloud9, same kind of ballpark. We expected Cloud9 to be last, basically. Then they beat Navi, and that was the interesting one to me, because I didn't think they were going to win against Navi on Overpass of all maps, but they did. And generally, this FaZe even just like, especially touching on the final where they just look super confident, and sure, a part of it was down to Liquid just completely disappearing basically for most of the series. Sorry.
Classic.
Exactly. Kind of. I feel like at some point they'll finally break through it, but it doesn't seem to be the case just yet. But anyway, this kind of phase looked like the phase that we knew from back when Guardian and Olaf came into the roster, basically. Just because once they got the confidence, they just ran through everybody and they just ran over everybody. And they even ran over the Astralis on Dust 2, which was the surprising one to me. We're going to get to Astralis later. But in that match, I was really, really surprised because they basically looked like better individuals across the board, and Astralis were really looking like they had an off day. So, yeah, definitely a phase that if you give confidence to, they will still be a very big threat.
Prof?
That's the problem with Blast. Like, what can you actually draw from this? A couple of best of ones, like first day phase, nothing special. Like as you said, next day they win 2 best of ones. They beat 3 in total. I mean, they beat Astralis that doesn't look like Astralis. Looks like a Chinese knockoff Astralis version or something. Like, what can you draw from this? Is this win a good like phase playing so well, or is it just Astralis not playing well? We didn't see, like, Astralis obviously didn't play well, so maybe we can't give that much credit to FaZe. And then you have the grand final where Liquid just does the classic Liquid and doesn't even show up, ruins another grand final. Just like, I don't know what can you actually say? I don't know.
I'm with you there.
I mean,
The broader strokes, yeah.
One thing that we do need to say is Adren and how he kind of turned around a really bad day one, where he was by far the worst rated player of the event after day one, where he was something like 0.70 rating or something like that after those first couple of matches, one loss, one draw. And then he turned it around to being like their potentially like second to third best player, basically. And he was just super consistent from the third match on. So that's one thing that we kind of do need to look at and see it as a big key to why FaZe managed to turn it around, because I don't think they would be able to do it without him, not even close. So that's definitely one thing. We always expect Nico to be able to put up a good fight. Sure, what Rain showed in that final, that was really surprising to me because we obviously haven't seen Rain in this kind of form for a while. So that's what I'm saying though. Like this was just looking like the FaZe with confidence that we knew from maybe like a year and a half ago or something, when they got that new roster and when they were looking super dominant. It's just like they were playing a fairly similar style. They haven't really changed all that much, even with YNK. And this tournament kind of showed what they can still do if their individuals actually show up and if they have the confidence to do so. Because that's how it looked like to me.
Do we think though? So I think there's a couple of things to maybe unravel from all of this. I agree in the sense of we've always thought, and the same thing we can say for MIBR, that the danger is there because we know the caliber of the players. It's just, we said this last time, that it would be impossible to think that all of these players are just over the hill, like that they're just never going to have a good game ever again. So if we decompile first of all and we look at the fact that in the scope of this tournament, there were definitely some really good games of Counter-Strike, right? Like there were some entertaining games of CS. In terms of the broad strokes, which is what you're talking about, Prof, we can't talk too much about what this means for the landscape of Counter-Strike because it's not a big enough sample size, right? We're not going to sit here and go, well, Cloud9, the score was 16-13 against Na'Vi. That means they must be pretty good, right? Like we can't do that. That would just be disingenuous of us to say that off of this sample size in the tournament. But we can potentially theorize what these results mean for certain teams, right? So FaZe Clan, the confidence there, do you guys feel that will lure them into a false sense of security that this roster as it is right now can still be threatening on a regular basis, or that they'll still be considering that they need a roster change to get a real in-game leader involved?
I think they'll still consider it that way. That's kind of been the recurring theme from interviews, that whenever we mention this in-game leading thing, they say, yeah, we're ready to give up on it anytime. Basically, anytime we find somebody that fits the role that we really like, we're going to give up on it. I don't think this changes anything. Nico will still feel the same way about in-game leading unless they just start dominating and they actually start being really consistent, like at the next couple of events. I'm not really sure which tournaments they're going to attend now. That's Pro League, well, yeah, and Sydney. So,
Pro League, yeah.
But if by any chance they win their group convincingly in Europe and then win Sydney, then I could see something changing in their minds about this in-game leadership thing. But with this one win, which is basically what, 3 best of ones, and a series against Liquid, who really did flop in the final, I don't think they're stupid. I don't think they're taking this as anything more than it actually is, than just a potentially like a one-off win, because we saw them do that with when they had like standing issues at the in the previous year as well. Every now and again they just reached this peak, and obviously they weren't able to maintain it. So I don't think even they will think this way, that they will be able to contend for titles consistently all the time. I think they still know that there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but at least it gives them, as we mentioned, it gives them a bit of confidence moving forward, as they have been just like not unable to do anything of note for such a long time. So
yeah,
winning a tournament, I think if Lucas can bring up the Nico MVP picture, like his smile, like how much happiness the guy has to finally win again.
Just quickly,
it's just so perfect.
I was watching some of the matches with Machine while we did split Twitch so we could keep our eyes on both things. And when Astralis were losing, everybody else was so much happier. Like everybody else, you could see the MIBR guys; they were having a good time. Like even though Navi were having struggle, like there were smiles there. Fucking FaZe are smiling. When Astralis are losing, everyone else in the Counter-Strike world seems to be happy. And like that is just a bit of a wild thing to be going on, right? Like, because I put Astralis on the super high pedestal, and I love what they've done to Counter-Strike, because it's had to make everybody much better. But you can see just how much of a beating that they put down on everybody for a long period of time. You think back to Sao Paulo, Liquid were ecstatic with winning one map against Astralis, like in a best of 3 series. Like, fuck yeah, we got a map, boys. Like, when in the world has that ever been? Like, that just shows you the domination. It's almost like you do like a bit of a Star Wars reference. Astralis are the fucking Empire, just destroying everybody, just rolling around in their fucking
just zoom in at that, Lucas. Let's go.
It's just it hadn't seen emotions like that out of a lot of these players for some time. It was just pure elation and happiness.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about, right? Like, sure, people talk about the Astralis playing boring, but then it makes it so much more exciting when they actually lose. When other people start beating them, and when they lose a tournament. This was great. This was amazing. This kind of like, especially their losses to MIBR, which was obviously super convincing, 16-2, and then to FaZe, which was a 16-5. And in the middle of it, they also lost to Liquid, which was actually a really good game. It looked like it was going to be one-sided towards Astralis, but then kind of turned back. But yeah, this was super exciting, because we haven't really seen Astralis lose 2 maps this way in fucking forever. I don't even remember if they ever did. Like, they lost in Stockholm. They lost that 1-2 to North. But even then,
yeah.
Actually on Overpass, I think that was, like in the final on Overpass, I think that was also kind of one-sided as far as I remember, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it's been super long since we saw Astralis across multiple matches. Sure, it's still best of ones. It's basically across multiple maps. Rather than matches, and see them get such a beat down. And that was another big takeaway from me. I mean, not a big takeaway, but the problem is I didn't get to watch their first 2 matches. I was actually focusing on like one of the other ones, but I rewatched it just in case, just to see whether there were any signs of them perhaps slowing down or anything, or any kind of indication that this was going to happen on the second day. There was none. They still looked like the amazing team that we've known them to be for this year-long period now, basically. They still look just as good as they ever did. And suddenly, like, second day and everything breaks. I don't know what happened there. If it was just a bad day, because this is a concept that we haven't really seen from Astralis. A bad day doesn't exist in the world of Astralis, basically. Like, we don't see them losing to multiple opponents on the same day, basically. That's what we haven't seen for the longest time. So that was the exciting part for me.
All right, well, I guess we can go from smiles of the players who have, I guess, put a little bit of damage into Astralis to smiles of Prof. Can we bring up the fantasy draft, Lucas, please?
Jesus Christ, that was a beatdown as well.
This one here, ladies and gentlemen, if you tune in, which I hope a lot of you do, we do the snake draft. We do the way that this was originally intended when released by HLTV.org, and that's why some of our teams look bad, namely Striker's team this time around. But one of the things that we need to point out here is that Prof destroyed us. It wasn't even close. It wasn't a competition whatsoever. So congratulations, Prof. I think that's back-to-back victories for you. But can we go into his team, please, Lucas, just so we can now extrapolate why it probably will never happen again. I was the only person not.
They're saying it was a fluke.
I'm not saying you winning was a fluke. I'm saying in the fashion in which you accumulated so many points, there was definitely a fluke.
Yeah.
You picked Fur and Fallen, who are two individuals who have not had the most fantastic tournaments by any means over the last several months. So there, how many points did you get for those two players?
Like 300 in total.
Well, there you go. That's just fucking bullshit, right? Like, that's not happening every day of the week. So you think about that in itself.
Vice is not going minus 30. This is literally ends at the major. The best player device minus 30 points. You have the X7 of my team Fallen.
He gets minus 28 and he's still fucking win by a landslide. That's insane.
Yeah, this is kind of insane.
So you obviously you had the Nico and Naf pick, which are good ones there. But Fur and Fallen, I think we could all say they overperformed based on recent form.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear. I think let's go down through the teams if we can, Lucas. I think I came second, not by. I think it was very close between me and Banks coming in third. So Electronic. Whatever. Rush is where I've really fucking hemorrhaged a significant amount of points. That one really came back to bite me right there. So that was a little bit frustrating. But all the other picks were pretty solid, right? Stewie and Twist, they're always good for a solid performance. And Cold Zero finally had a better tournament after a little while. And then what do we have? We have Banks next. And then we'll go to Lucas, and then Striker was last, I believe, right?
Banks got simple on his worst tournament, like in
forever.
That's the thing, that this was such a weird off tournament in so many ways.
Yeah.
Like you picked the two best players of the event, basically, like by far.
Yep.
And then
Naf was a good pick, I think.
Oh, Naf would have been both Nico and Naf are obviously like pretty good picks no matter what. But obviously, like this tournament, they just fucking went ham, both of them.
Yeah, Naf was underperforming for some time, but like I at least believed he would bounce back sooner or later. So it was just about when that would happen.
He still has good tournaments though, basically all the time. So it's not like he's ever gonna go into negatives. He's always gonna be a solid pick.
Lucas, who did you have again? I think you got Dupree, right? Because Striker was unable to do so with a little bit of a clerical error there. So this is our producer's team. Now, what my eyes are getting bad. How many points did you get for Magisk and Dupree? Okay,
80,
so Dupree, you're
total.
kind of lucky. You're lucky, Striker, that you actually didn't get Dupree in that regard. And then Lucas's team, Nitro actually had some pretty decent performances. Like there was some
would have
maps
been
where
close
he
to
did
minus if I got Dupree instead of automatic. Actually, I think I would have been in the negative total if I went for Dupree instead of automatic.
And then who did Striker have? Let's see who Striker had.
Well,
at the
I
end
had
of things.
Zipex, who also didn't have like the greatest tournament. He was okay.
Minus 25. He was okay.
Yeah,
he was okay, but obviously
one,
not great for first pick. Automatic was the one that I figured was going to be at least like giving me some positives, because he's just been looking like a class above his teammates. Basically, he's always been delivering. Guardian, I wasn't too sure about. Sure, it still gave me 100 points. Flamey, I'm not going to pick him again. I picked him twice in a row. I kind of like got stuck with him. I didn't have too many other options. He still gave me 21 points. I think mostly because of bonuses. I don't remember right now. But something like that. And Vice, obviously, minus 100. That's the one that bit me pretty hard.
Vice didn't really do anything. Like in my eyes, from what I watched the Cloud9 games,
match, basically.
He had the last match when there was Cloud9 Navi. Both teams already eliminated. Like no one cares about the game.
Well,
that's the only game he does well. Like I can't even count that as a good game, honestly.
Oh, he had a good game against Liquid too. The second one. That was the one I watched pretty closely.
So the next one of these that we'll be doing won't be until, I assume,
Sydney, probably.
Sydney, yeah.
is confirmed, and there is DreamHack Rio, but I don't know. We didn't get the confirmation that it's gonna happen, so I'm presuming it won't. But don't who knows?
Yeah.
So we'll aim to do it for Sydney, which next week there is a break for Pro League on the Monday, and then there's not a lot going on that Friday. Yeah. So we'll see if we can fit in some shows before then, so we can get the draft going again. Maybe we'll have some guests come in like we did previously with Moses and Smooya. We'll see what we can get together, and maybe even get a prize on the line. And speaking of prizes, we actually have to draw the winner here of this is the main one from HLTV.org, right, Prof? I think you know more than me.
Yeah, it's the public league, like the money draft league, where anyone can join and pick their own players. The thing is that we people picked almost actually the same team, some different roles, and ended up with the same number of points. And the only tiebreaker we have is just to randomize between the two users about who's going to win, like a knife skin. I don't know which, but it says in the article it's some flip knife or something. I don't know. So all in all, these two guys, Alex Meister and Alfredo, picked. They got Naf, Nico, Simple, and Olof and Phelps, and ended up with 889 points. Kind of insane. And so just to decide who's gonna get the knife, we'll do when our producer is ready. We'll do like a short random thing and see who wins.
Start.
Okay.
Stop.
This is delayed on my.
That was pretty easy, right?
It's delayed for us. It's not going to be delayed on the stream. Good job. Good job, Chad.
It stops any second now.
It's taking some time.
Well, it has to do the realism, right? So you can't fake this at all. Wonderful. Oh dear. All right. Well, Alfredo 21. I'm sure the correct people will contact you and give you your skin. I'm not sure how that's going to go down. I'm not really an adjudicating body on this.
Through the HLTV inbox message thing, just check it, and that's it.
I only learned there was an inbox about a week ago, so I've had my account on HLTV.org for a very long time. I can't remember the last time I looked in there or I ever used it, but it's a bit of a cesspool. Anyway, users on HLTV.org. Yeah, I think that's.
He's Bulgarian, by the way.
Just to wrap here on what we were talking about. So we spoke about FaZe and then winning the tournament. We touched on Astralis and that we're not going to take anything away from them. We actually talk about when we go into a Blast tournament saying this is the perfect storm for teams to beat Astralis based on the best of one nature. Obviously, we had Liquid flop in the final, which we touched on as well. I think that's another one which is a bit of a, not an anomaly, but in the sense of we still consider Liquid to be a fucking sick team, right? We don't lose anything from them there. Who else do we have there at this one? We had the Na'Vi one.
MIBR we still haven't really touched on too much, I think.
Sure, let's go MIBR.
Well, it's just, in terms of context, like looking back at their last events, what was this? What was the record that they had? Something like 1-9 or whatever in their last 10 matches. So that gives you the context of how they went into the tournament. And obviously they ended up taking down Astralis 16-2 somehow, with Coldzera being a fucking god. That was a big surprise. I didn't see MIBR beating anybody. Well, not anybody, but
yeah. It was also for playing. They had that aggressive seat side and overpass, no fucks given, doing whatever they want. And I think it kind of is something that Sponge said on the last episode. They can just throw caution to the wind and do whatever, because the expectations are so low and they're playing against a team that is so good that they can do whatever, and just things can happen. Best of one. That's it. And they found some form. Overall played pretty decent. So I don't know. We'll see how they do moving forward, but it's not something that we knew that they could play like this. It's not a surprise that they can play to this level. So if they can push it forward, that is what they need to do and what they're built to do.
That's the other question, though. Can they? I'm not entirely sure that this was sustainable, especially the way that they beat Astralis. This is not the kind of level that we can see Cold Zero at all the time, obviously, and even like you say, Fair was okay as well. But yeah, just generally, and especially like this was an obvious underperformance from Astralis, so that's another thing that we have to take into consideration when talking about this. But sure, this is like the same kind of phase type situation that MIB are actually getting some confirmation that this is a team that can work in certain circumstances. It's just they have to get to some sort of a consistent level where they can take these teams down more on a more day-to-day basis, because they haven't done so thus far.
Yeah, I think as well that they have been doing the world tour. Now, we spoke about this last time.
Yeah.
That is obviously their choice to do that, but they found themselves in a position where I'm sure they wish that they didn't do this. And it's good to see that the individuals can still frag to a high level, because that just proves the point as well that we were having, where it was like, well, we know that these players are still good players. I think as they have a chance to sit down and do a bit of practice and really iron things out, they could be still a definite threat. They're maintaining a level right now. They're still, like, if you put them toe-to-toe against, a Renegades or an Ents or something like that, there's no way that, like, I'm favoring Renegades and Ents because they're playing a more well-rounded style of CS, but I'm still saying that they have a chance. They haven't fallen completely off the radar at all yet. They're still dangerous. It's just then, the same as FaZe, they're not consistently living up to that top level. The only other team here, I guess, that is worthy of us having a chat about would be this Cloud9 thing. When does this nightmare stop, do we think?
I don't know, man. The problem is, like, they actually get, like, every now and again, basically with every single move that they made, they got some sort of a result that was, like, maybe not great, but at least it was promising. Right now that they got, I just want to go back to their matches because I'm forgetting.
They should have tied against Liquid. But
yeah, they should have tied against Liquid. That was a mess as well.
That 5v3 at
that 30th round, I was pulling my hair. I was just like shouting across the house. Basically, it was a bad one. But just generally, like, they obviously got Navi and Liquid to close results, which is something that we even Astralis, that was a pretty okay game. So that's the problem that I have with Cloud9 in general. Basically, like, they keep being led into this false sense of promise where they get some results that actually look like they could be a decent team. But the problem is it never leads anywhere. So that's what I kind of expect to continue here. The problem is when do they actually understand that this is what's happening?
Well, I was just about to lead into that. They're in Group C of Pro League, which is actually the topic that we wanted to move on to next. So we can kind of segue over there easily. So with them in Group C, we'll just touch on this, close out Miami, and then we'll start the Pro League chat. If they don't get through there, where they have to play the likes of Envy, MIBR, and Luminosity. So for those who don't understand how Pro League works at the moment, it's 4 groups of 4 offline, everything played on land for the Americas and the European regions. And if you come dead last in your group, you have no opportunity to make it to those finals. Now, it's actually more cutthroat in NA. It's only the top 6, whereas it's the top 8 in EU who make it. So if they lose all of those matches, or for whatever way it works out with tiebreakers, etc., they could come last in that group, and then they're not going to have an opportunity to play in the finals. And that they're losing to the caliber of opponents I've just spoken about. MIBR is the only one that you should say that they like should be losing to, whereas Envious and Luminosity are still. They're names that, sure, they can be dangerous any given Sunday, but only within the realms of their pond at the moment, I would say. So I think that maybe that's a marker for them going forward. But if they keep adding and changing players and go, oh, well, we have more time, or we think we have more time, then maybe that's where it starts to become a problem. Maybe the major, when they try and qualify, who knows?
I think they announced this Vice edition as a trial, right? So that's also an indication of how they're thinking about this change, that they could potentially not work out. And obviously, so far, he hasn't really delivered too much, right? Faf was talking about it. He basically had 2 okay games. Like, the one against Liquid, I thought he was actually doing really well. But yeah, the other 3 were just complete bombs from the other teams, and Vice didn't really turn up in any of them. So that's, yeah, he's obviously going to be the first one that they look to if they want to make more changes. And it makes sense from what we were talking about the addition, even from the start, that it didn't really make too much sense from for Cloud9 to pick up. But the problem is, do they even have like other options? That's always what we kind of consider in NA.
The thing is, like,
Yeah,
if they want to stick to this roster, it's bad because this roster doesn't look like it. Like, this roster theoretically can't be a top 5 team. So that's not something they want to be a top 5 team, in theory at least, or at least contest for that.
It's not even a top
that's
10
not
team
good.
in theory, basically.
Yeah, I'm just like, let's go down to the point. And at the same time, if they change the roster, that's not good again, because they're changing the roster every 45 days on average for the past year. So whatever they do, it's not good. So they obviously will need to, like, Cloud9 fans, just like strap in for another like 3 to 6 rough months before you can expect anything from the team.
I think that's a fair sentiment. I definitely think that's a fair sentiment, because if they don't qualify for the major, because for those of you who don't know, that they've forfeited their spot, if they don't qualify, then I guess that's when there will be a lot of changes within the North American scene anyway, right? We have a pretty good hope for NRG getting back there. Liquid are already there. If all these teams go and they fail, maybe, Wardell from Ghost will be fed up of not being able to play at a major with his current team, etc. They can pick pieces of the puzzle, because Cloud9 have a lot of weight to throw around, right? They're the biggest name in North American CS. They have a shitload of money, and maybe it's exactly that. They just need to wait for the time to expire for them to be able to get the players that they need or want, and they definitely should build a North American roster with at least 4 of their players being from that part of the world. I understand it's difficult to get yourself a good in-game leader, so maybe if they really want to hold on to Golden for that, then that could be the one thing that they do. But I just think that make it primarily a North American roster, because this is what the fans, they look for. That's what they want, right? It's like if Renegades tomorrow became a fucking American team completely, well, they just completely lose the fan base of Australia, which I'm aware is tiny, but the point still stands that Renegades are like Australia's team. Well, Cloud9 used to be America's team for the longest time, and with all these changes, it's difficult to still put them in that same position.
Yeah.
So Cloud9 is playing against Envy at Pro League. That features Nifty, who was just the analyst at Blast Pro Series Miami, where Cloud9 played.
What's the point?
That's just a fact.
What is the
That's
point?
just a fact. That's just a
Where are you
fact.
going with
and you can use that fact however you want.
I thought you were
Okay.
gonna say like he will have watched like all of the Cloud9 games. He will know how they play. What
I just found it amusing. Maybe it's a fun fact. Maybe it's a sad
kind of a
fact.
fun fact.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's a
that's true.
surprising fact.
That's
like
kind
this
of surprising,
MVP
honestly, to me, just because
This Envy
obviously,
team honestly isn't that bad. Like, there is some potential here, actually.
yeah, not too. I mean, if we don't expect them to tear it up on an international level, really.
They have
sure.
they have young Sam, Android, Fugly, Nifty, JDM that played like decent with Kerrigan at least. Who knows? Maybe something can happen. Like Cloud9, they didn't sell me anything. Like
No.
the rounds they lost, that round against Liquid, the last round, like literally, I don't know. How do you survive that as a team? But even the Astralis game, they had like 2 absolute blunders, like a 3v1 against Zipnix, where Automatic literally was hunting for the last guy, even though it was an anti-eco, and then his 2 guys died, and then he wasn't like, even, they weren't communicating, he didn't come to help, and Zipnix just won a clutch, and everyone's like, Zipnix a god, like, what are these guys doing against him? Like, what are they doing? Why are they literally giving him a clutch? So a couple of these rounds, I'm not really sold on them so far, so could be actually kind of a rough time at Pro League for them. I'm not.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too easy for them, but somebody told me, one of my little birdies told me that for that event, the only map that they really practiced like a lot on, like they were feeling good on, was Overpass, and they played that 3 out of the 5 best of 1 games. So there is obviously room for growth, but I am with you guys that it's difficult to see too much positive at the moment. Maybe after the major. So moving now to Pro League, we'll get stuck in there. So those of you who didn't actually catch up with it, North America and EU is going on at the same time offline. We had Group A, which had Optic, North, X-Space Soldiers, and the debut of Mousesports. It was actually the debut of the X-Space Soldiers roster and that of Optic as well. And then during the North American side of things, we had Renegades, NRG, E United, and INTZ with stand-ins. So there was a little bit of a mess. Did you guys catch many of those games?
Not Group A, no. I mean, not Americas anyway.
I did some, but like not that much in depth. But of course, I think the European mouse sports thing is the thing to discuss. Definitely, just mouse sports beating everyone and quite comfortably.
Convincingly too, yeah.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of watching these games quite intensely, and a few of the things which stand out as stat lines, I guess we love some of those. Optic had a very good pistol win percentage over all their games, which is kind of surprising, considering they're a relatively new team together with this five. And then the other sort of things, North team has been together.
It's the combined brain of MSL
The brain
and Snappy.
trust. Yeah, man. I think I referred to them as like a brain bug.
A brain
From
bug?
Starship Troopers. Do you guys may have seen
Okay.
Starship Troopers?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Where we could get our softcore nudity from back in the day with the shower scene and that. Anyway, so and North on the other hand, they only won two pistols out of 14.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's rough.
That is rough.
Like, just do a B rush or something. It's gonna work once.
It was pretty ridiculous.
I thought it was pretty like telling of how that group went. If you go into the stats page of just the players of the ESL Pro League Season 9 Europe, the top 5 is all most sports players. The bottom 5 is all Space Soldiers players, and in between is North and Optic basically. So that's basically how the group went. Space Soldiers by far the worst team, most sports by far the best, and then they just fought it out against each other. Didn't really matter in the end because most sports just destroyed both of them basically. Optic did take a map off most sports, so at least there's that, but obviously it didn't really make any real difference.
So, MSL's still AWPing, by the way. He won a 1v3 with an AWP.
Yes, and Snappy is playing in that team, and their MSL and Snappy are playing together in a team, and they're actually better than North. How does that work?
I feel like North. I mean, Valde also had a pretty bad tournament, which is something that needs to be said. I think that was pretty surprising to me, at least. I mean, he played awful against mouse sports, especially, but even in the North series, in the Optic series, he didn't look great. So that's one thing. If you're missing your best player, you're not gonna have a great outlook.
I'm at the point with North now, and I have sat there on many a desk and saying this roster is packed with star potential. Kirby's won a fucking major. Valde, he's the next in line if somebody drops dead in Astralis. Fucking Cadian's come a long way, and now he's got a much better attitude to when he was playing years ago, and he's in-game leading and AWPing, and he's doing a serviceable job. Gade, as a multi-frag player on the CT side, locking down positions like close T main on train, is just fucking owning it. Like, he's still getting away with it, even though it's the same shit. AZ is performing much better in recent times than what we have seen from him out of the last 2 years. But they still just fucking suck. So are we at the point where there's too much pressure being put on these kids to play a brand of Counter-Strike that they just can't play? Or is it that these guys are just, they just really struggle and can't convert in officials? I think either way, no matter which one of those two that you land on, I'm fed up of having the storyline of North have potential, because it's squandered now. It's wasted. How long have North been an organization for where they've been trying to change this and follow the Astralis blueprint, at least in terms of professionalism, and nothing's happening? You go into this group as the only team with a foundation, the only team who's had significant amount of practice, strategy. Sure, the coach might be a little bit new, but who the fuck cares? Like, the nature of the team has been there for such a long period of time, and they just struggle. Like, they make easy things look difficult, and we get to do interviews with them after the game, just asking them a couple of questions from the desk.
I know that Prof was thinking about exactly the same thing as I do when you said that. When you said that phrase, and we both had that video of that clip from you showing how Space Soldiers are making things difficult.
Oh,
we both had that same reaction.
Yeah,
exactly that.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I was also laughing in the chat. Someone said, "Hey Sponge, I'm a dumb C9 fan. I need you to yell at me. Thanks." Maybe he needs to pay for that.
By the way, that could be like a good service that you could do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like $200 an hour or something.
To get yelled at.
Just get me on a bad day, and then I'll give it to you for free. But I think that North for me are a team who have to fall off my radar in terms of ever seeming like a top 10 prospect. like on a regular basis.
They've just been on the edge for fucking ever. That's the thing. Like they've never really passed that mark. Even like back in Dignitas days, basically, like they were like a borderline top 10 team, sometimes looking like potentially like on the cusp of top 5. But then the next month they just drop back down. So that's the thing. Like,
but that's the thing. Like that Dignitas lineup has like 0 players that are now in.
Well, yeah, of course.
But just like, but the identity is there.
Exactly. The
all the roster
still
changes.
Stays.
So
over the course of 3 years or whatever.
Yeah. So that's kind of good for them. They kept the identity. Too bad the identity is perpetual, not winner, just okay team.
Yeah.
Do we think that they're overrated in terms of where they are right now, being the 12th highest team? The new HLTV All rankings came out. They're 12th in the world. Do you think they're 12th in the world best team? Like, do they feel like that to you guys? Because they don't feel like that to me. I'm not trying to be harsh.
Like, last week they beat FaZe. That like I was sure that wasn't going to happen.
Look, I don't see enough teams below them to make it over. Basically, that I have confidence in and saying that they are better than North. So I feel like that's at least about right. Because sure, like you could look at Wendigo. That's definitely one.
Like
they're number 13. They're right below.
Probably is gonna.
I mean, yeah, Mouse Sports, but they have to make it back through points. They just literally made a new team. So that's one team, but that's just one spot that you can definitely say. Then Wendigo is like on par or whatever, it could be above. But then like you go further down and you look at G2, teams like Valiant, Avangor, big. Just not enough teams.
You can't really put them in the category below them, like Wendigo, G2, Valiants, but you also wouldn't put them like in the category above, which is Fnatic, NRG, Vitality, and IP.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just like in between there.
I feel like they are exactly where they're kind of supposed to be around that point.
Sure.
Like in terms of like expectations, sure, I can see that because like a lot of people just still go like, yeah, but this North team, when they finally get it together, they could get somewhere, but they haven't. So yeah, that's just down to fan expectations and even a little bit our expectations as well, just because we think this at some point should work.
The question is, Optic obviously have an in-game leader to spare. Does North take Snappy? Is that an option for them?
But the thing is, like, Snappy hasn't really given himself the best outlook either in this past, how long has Optic been a thing? For about a year?
6 months, right?
No, that's more than that. Way more than that. Because they played in August. They played the fuck was it called? Zotac. And then that was even there like 3rd, 4th. I think it's almost.
It was a year ago, 24th of April.
Oh yeah. Okay, so almost exactly a year. So that's the thing. Like in this past year, what have Optic done? Absolutely fucking nothing. So for North to just go, this in-game leader will do it. That's just rinse and repeat in Denmark, I feel like.
I think that if I was the Optic organization, I would start looking elsewhere for something a little bit more exciting, right? Because these names, now that we really put it in the context of a whole year, that's oof.
That's exactly it. Oof. Like they literally haven't done, like, let me just run through.
By the way, we never touched on this the last time we talked about Optic, but them as an organization, like whatever Cloud9 did, they're like 5 times worse. Like from what they had to what they have now and the way they did it, like all of the steps, like I think it's just a lot of mismanagement and maybe some favoritism about who they want in a team, because obviously they have the Danish guy being like a general manager or whatever, Milk, who came over from.
From he's not even there anymore, is he? Or am I just?
I think he
tripping?
is. He works for Infinite, which is the parent company.
Okay.
I don't know if he went out, but he was definitely there when they made the move from the North American lineup to the Danish lineup, which is also, if you go and read, like I think the Shazam interview I did, there's a touch on that, because Optic was actually thinking about doing what is now probably Complexity, the Shazam, Stanislaw lineup or whatever, which maybe makes more sense for them as an organization as well, because I don't see like Optic, Greenwall, Fanbase, Call of Duty, and now they have a Danish team. And a Danish team that's, I mean, Danish players aren't cheap, definitely, and the Danish like lineup doesn't really clash with doesn't really fit with the whole organization in my opinion.
You're not winning the Danish fan base battle at all, are you?
Yeah.
That's completely monopolized by
not
Astralis.
even close.
So
you're not even in the discussion.
No. So when you look at this, and you're right, he's still there. He's the Senior Vice President of Operations at Infinite Esports and Entertainment, based on his Twitter bio, which I guess we can all assume is still accurate. But yeah, that definitely plays into something. So maybe Optic got sold a bit of a lemon with Danish Counter-Strike. Obviously, it's not like, this is the thing right now. This is we're going down a different little path right now. But if you're somebody who's looking to buy a team and you're an already established organization, you want to look at places where you can get a big fan base, right? Well, already the Nordic region, there are a lot of Counter-Strike players, but you go to Sweden, okay, well, it's NIP and then it's Fnatic. Like, that's clear. Like, there's no fucking discussion there. You go to Finland, it's ENCE. You go to Denmark, it's Astralis, and then maybe you have a couple of guys who think they're edgy and they go for North. No one's fucking supporting Optic or Heroic, right? No one gives a fuck about those guys. So where would you look to as well? I guess you could start theorizing that. Nobody really has a huge brand coming out of Asia other than Tai Lu, and that's pretty messy anyway. So yeah,
I mean, they tried to go the European route, right? But that's basically zero fan base completely, because you just have a couple of guys from, or like one guy from every country or something. When they had HS and those guys, Alu,
Freiburg, Alu, Mixwell. But I think that lineup actually had a decent fan base because those players had good personalities.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Good, that was some personality, because Alu, Freiburg, even Mixwell to a certain degree, they all had a.
And Magisk was the fifth as well. Magisk
yeah, that's true.
Also kind of.
Was HS on there, right?
Yeah. HS is was the least kind of popular, I guess, out of that entire bunch. But still, you know,
that lineup also
didn't prospect.
That lineup also didn't have to fall apart. Obviously, there were talks about getting this and that player, but no one was acquired, and then everyone left.
I think it just didn't. Well, whatever. That's way off topic. Anyway, Chad, continue.
We can move on to mouse sports now, I suppose. And watching them was really refreshing to see. I think if you look at the stats in a group with only 4 teams, then you go, oh, look, they played well. But obviously we need to see them play against better teams. What I really liked was the fact that I could hear them. And the mouse sports of old, with LMBT as the coach and Sonny in the roster and Oscar in the roster, flat, quiet.
Nothing.
You know, very rare you get a fucking anything out of them. This new team could hear them through the wall, celebrating everything. And I think that's a really good vibe to bring in there. And I think that's a fantastic place for Frozen and Rops to be in as young players, now that you have Chris J and Carrigan as the veterans, very established veterans there, who have a lot of experience in different... They even played together at one point. So I think Chris J was showing individually he is still a very good player. Rops doing what he does. Frozen, I think we're still in this very fledgling status right now in terms of playing on this level of Counter-Strike. Voxic, yeah, AWP, just killing people, pretty standard from him. Nothing, you know, crazy, but he's doing his level. And I think, you know, when you look at how he was propped up in HellRaisers, for it to be him and Issa as the star duo, it's not going to be like that in this team. He can have off games, and I'm not worried about Mouse Sports losing, because I know Chris J can pick up the secondary AWP. I know Frozen and Rops are very good. And even Carrigan, you could see what it was like now for him to have confidence behind him again. Once again, keep it in the context of lesser teams, sure. But he was multi-fragging in positions where, say, somebody got entried on, and he's picking up 2 kills, maybe getting a third. Like, he was doing a very good job as somebody who's now 29. So he's you know, getting on in terms of the Counter-Strike world. What do you guys make of it?
I definitely like that. I obviously didn't really know about the shouting part. Or anything like that since I wasn't there, but I mean, it kind of made sense just because Voxic is in that team now, who was famously pretty loud with this on the HellRaisers team, and just generally the HellRaisers team was pretty loud in overall. Chris J was always the loudest out of most sports. Anyway, like even the previous roster. Frozen, I'm not even sure that much. I think he's kind of like a little bit like Rops in being kind of quiet, but it just makes sense that this team is a little bit more emotional than the last one was, because that was a little bit of a dead zone, to be honest. So yeah, that makes sense. And just generally the way that the Kerrigan has put these pieces together, I think makes a lot of sense. I'm still kind of waiting on Frozen, like you say, to kind of establish himself among this, at least this tier competition, which is not obviously not the highest, still North Optic, that's just like borderline top 10 teams at best. So I'm still waiting on him, and here at least he was consistent. That's one thing that I'm going to take away from this, which is a pretty good sign for a youngster like him to kind of be able to put up like okay numbers from game to game all the time. Basically, he didn't really shine. Other people were there for that, mostly Voxic and Robs. But still, he feels like a solid third player for this team, with alongside Chris J, who obviously has his peaks, ups and downs. So yeah, I liked what Kerrigan did with this team, and like you say, it definitely gives him a lot of confidence, just because he has all these youngsters under him, well, outside of Chris J, who are going to respect him, who are going to look up to him, and so that's definitely going to have a positive effect on his confidence as well. So I can see why he's kind of stepping up as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's kind of funny that Mousesports even wanted to kind of bench Chris J or whatever, when we see that he fits into the team quite fine. Like, he isn't a player that's like past his expiration date. So I'm kind of happy to see that, and to see that this Mousesports team like just stomped everyone in the group. Yeah, they lost one map, but whatever. The rest was pretty confident. So I can say that we're looking at like Sydney, their next event, and kind of expecting them to be a team that is going to be contesting, maybe not to win, but at least make like the top 4. And then we can see really what they're made of as a team when they go into the series that is much more demanding, when they go into the distance in the 28 round, the 30 round games, how they're going to be acting like under those situations, especially someone like Frozen that is like new to the whole thing. And it's also pretty funny that they have like Chris J, that's 28, Kerrigan 29, and then Frozen is 16. It's like 15 years difference, like a cultural difference, and just them as people. That's kind of interesting to see them as a team and how that will develop. But as Mousesports did, as Kerrigan did in FaZe as well, doesn't seem like a big thing, like having cultural differences and stuff like that.
It's just a good combination, right? It's just like the veterancy with like an already established youngster who is a Rops, and then 2 players who are kind of still like on the way up. Obviously, Voxic a little bit more than Frozen, but this just, even like looking at this aspect of it, it just seems like a really good combination for success.
Do we want to make some wild accusations right here? And let's say,
what do you mean?
Let's throw some stuff at. Well, we can refer back to this. Like, let's make a prediction right now. By the major, how high in the rankings do we think Mousesports will be? Cemented in the top 10?
I mean, just to put things into context, right now they are at 23. Top 10, yes. I would say top 10.
Yeah,
I would say somewhere on the cusp. I would say like whatever, 7th to 10th, like past top 10, basically, like better than North, Windigo, blah blah blah.
Sure. Yeah, I'd definitely be on board with that. So what we could do, because Group B is coming up tomorrow, we start Group B for the European side of things. Let's do this. So I'm going to list the teams here. It's Devils, 1, FaZe, Heroic, and NIP. For those of you who aren't aware, teams who come 2nd and 3rd in the group will come back and they will play against. So if you come 2nd and 3rd in Group A, you play against teams who come 2nd and 3rd in Group B. Then the top 2 teams of those 4 will go through to the finals, right? We need 8 teams from the European region to come on through. Do you think Optic and North are going to be the 2? Like, I think most likely if we look at Group B, most of us would have FaZe and NIP, right? We'd have either FaZe or NIP as the top team. And if we wanted to play it off of FaZe's recent performance, let's just say FaZe. So then the thing is, Devils won. There's no reason they can't beat Heroic or NIP.
Well, Heroic for sure. And the NIP, yeah, they've also had that history of like losing some pretty weird matches and just looking really off at times. So I could definitely see them losing to the Polish guys, even though like obviously NIP will be the favorites in either matchup against Heroic or against Devils 1. But I don't know. I look at this group and it's just gonna be a weird one. I think it is a pretty free win for FaZe, as long as they can beat NIP basically. I don't see FaZe losing to either of Heroic or Devils 1. That would just take like another really bad day for FaZe. I don't think that's going to happen off this win in Miami. So I think they're definitely going to be in contention for that first place. NIP, we always come back to NIP and think like they are definitely like a contender for that first spot, but then again they could also finish last just because it's an IP, they're inconsistent as hell, and they have to complete the different versions of themselves. So that's the thing. Like this group is really wide open.
It's their first event with Dennis back, so
that's also true. Well, yeah, that's one thing that I'm actually looking forward to. I was talking about this last time that with Dennis getting this break, if it's actually going to help him or not.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes back and is again like playing just like, I don't know, underwhelming CS, then this all seems like kind of a bad idea, but who knows. But there's someone in chat is like asking Devils One, like writing question marks. That is the ex-Kingwin team with Taz and the Polish guys. It's kind of a rebrand / something. I think it's kind of the same ownership, but with some new investors, and Taz is a co-owner, like a small percent, something like that.
Which is funny, right? Taz, Devil, Tasmanian Devil. Ha!
The One.
Anyway,
like Neo the One.
It's probably a good idea that they moved away from the name Kingwin. Obviously, that is associated with that fucking website. Is it with the games or the skins or the thing or whatever the cool kids are doing nowadays? That's what Kingwin's associated with. So I understand that the rebrand, but it has Rowland, Minais, Mouse, and Daicha, I believe. Is that how you'd say it? Dycha?
Dycha is probably like the way I would say it in Czech, Polish, whatever. That's how I would say it. The problem is like nobody will unless it's actually gonna get established.
Mate, we asked Gade on broadcast the other day.
It should be Dycha based on Slavic language.
It sounds like Dicka. That's what. Anyway, we asked Gade the other day. We said, Gade, how do you say your name? And he said it. And we're like, is it cool if we just call you Gade? And he was like, yeah. So we're not like I can't cast a game and call a guy Gil. Like my mouth doesn't fucking do that. First of all, you got to give us English speakers a bit of a break here. But this group right here, I think FaZe are the clear favorite, and then there are so many questions around if NIP, like you mentioned, can perform. Heroic, they've been boot camping a lot. So for Heroic and Devils One, this is their, to use Lerps's Tommy's term for this kind of thing, it's like their Super Bowl, right? Like they're pouring everything into this. So I think there can be a lot of upsets over the next 3 days in this group.
Yeah, Heroic are definitely the team that I'm hoping to see something from here, and then they qualified for Sydney through that GGBet qualifier for the last spot, I think. So that's also their next thing after this. Even if they don't do that well in Leicester, they can do something in Sydney. And I don't know, BlameF took over the in-game leadership over there. They won't have Peacemaker as their coach at Pro League finals because of visa issues, of course, which literally everyone's having for UK and for US for some reason. I don't know. So that's maybe a small minus for them here. Maybe we can give them like a small, I don't know, just let them pass if they have a rougher event here. But then at Sydney, I think we should see them and see what they can actually do with this lineup.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Stavan definitely gonna be in the limelight as the new guy coming in, basically.
Yeah, and we've already seen him play on LAN back in the day, but he had the comfort of his brothers. Obviously, there was Dragonfly and is it Life Dance?
What?
The coach.
Was his brother as well. So he had the comfort there. This is probably one of the first times that he's going without them. He's been boot camping in the offices with the team, but it's a pretty big step for a youngster like that. So we'll see how that one rolls on out. We can look on over to the North American side of things and how that one rolled out yesterday. It concluded with Renegades actually taking out NRG. They played United on the first day. Yes, taking down. So Renegades beat United. They beat INTZ and they beat NRG, but on the first day they had Cutler and Smooya standing in, and they weren't able to get it done against United. So the way it worked out, this group, just for those of you playing at home, INTZ had stand-ins as well. They had Showtime and Horvey standing in for Destiny and KNG, I believe it is. Of course. Yeah. So there was a three-way tie in the group where NRG, United, and Renegades were all tied. Now, Those of you who haven't seen it, Mihao, one of the League Ops guys from ESL, tweeted the little snippet from the rulebook in terms of how the tiebreakers work out, and it comes down to map difference. So there's a whole bunch of things, and then I think it's map difference. I don't know if the first one's map difference. It's first of all, it's like head to head in terms of points. But anyway, yeah. But the first one that actually where you could draw,
but they obviously beat each other, so there's no way that that can resolve.
Exactly. So it was NRG going through first, and then E United and Renegades will have to come back to play again in a later week. So we can't take anything from Renegades because they played with stand-ins. We can't take anything from INTZ because they played with stand-ins. E United played against teams with stand-ins, and they only won against teams with stand-ins. And NRG beat E United and beat INTZ. So it's like Renegades actually did the harder job, I would say, by winning against NRG with a stand-in. Like that's pretty wild.
Just noticed Group D. What the fuck?
Oh, that's the.
What? This is the South American. Yeah. This is South American one. Yeah, never mind.
So people need to let me explain that.
I got surprised by that one like a month ago when it was announced or something.
Ladies and gentlemen in chat who are a little bit like Group D is rigged. But basically, what you need to realize here is the other three groups, just because they have Brazilian teams in them, are all teams who are meant to be, at least from my understanding, living and competing within the North American region. Whereas Group D is made up of teams who live and compete within South America. So that is why the disparity between the groups is so broad. Now, Pro League, the whole goal of Pro League is to be a global league in all different regions, right? Well, you obviously have a lot of teams from Brazil who have all followed in the footsteps of MIBR, SK Luminosity, Kabul, I can keep going. And they've now moved to that part of the world. They're either struggling to get P1 visas or they have P1 visas, whatever. So that's kind of why we have this bit of a disparity. And I know people were up in arms when Furia didn't take the slot, and then we had the whole singularity bullshit. Actually, we can talk about that maybe. That's a pretty good segue right there. But that's why Group D is so heavily weighted in that way. What did you guys think about the thing with Singularity not being the invited team, but it was Furia and then it went to Luminosity because Rogue didn't have a team anymore?
Like, all of these teams are so low on my radar that I can't really say that I follow, like, oh, this team is obviously better, this team is worse. Like, I'd have to go and really do a bit more digging before I can really say anything. But like the Furia thing, obviously they declined, and they would be like they're the best pick.
Choice.
Yeah. They declined because they're playing Rio, and is that a good choice or not? I presume they have something planned around the whole event, which is in Brazil, where they have their maybe sponsors or other things planned that they just can't cancel right now, because even though it seems like a long-term better thing, it's just like short-term they probably just can't do it because it is kind of last second and all of that, and Rio is something they planned for a month or more. So with that, like coming down to Luminosity and Singularity, I think the Singularity post, even though it kind of was written weirdly, I think it made some good brought up some good points.
It was written by a kid throwing his toys out of a fucking pram. That's what it was written like. I read it and I went, I just fucking, oh, Jesus.
The thing is, like, you would have
part of this.
I'm just trying to come up with like a reasonable solution instead of just inviting one or the other, right? Which would be just to play a tiebreaker for that MDL season 30, right? Because both of them went third to fourth. So how do you decide which one goes through? Just have them played against each other like a best of three. I'm sure there was time for that, or there must have been some way to organize that. So it's just a weird decision for me, just because there was an obvious better solution. Unless there's something I'm missing, that one of the teams wasn't in the region or whatever at the time. I just don't understand why that wasn't utilized instead.
So they would have been in Group C, right? So there's still 4 days from now until they would start playing.
Yeah, there's time for sure. That's the thing.
But we have to. We're looking at it like there'd be time on a basic, the way the calendar works, right? But I'm going to play devil's advocate once more and look at things from a TO perspective, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to consider a couple of things. So when was this? How long ago did this announcement happen? With the it was less than a week ago, right? The Furia Luminosity thing.
Ago. I'm trying to.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say that they were talking to Rogue about it, and they've given Rogue a deadline, and Rogue have just like either just waited or they haven't given the answer. Then the deadline comes around, they're like, "Now we won't have a team," or however the decision was made, right? Then they go, "Well, who are we going to get next?" And they go to Furia, who are the clear choice without a doubt. And Furia like, "Let us get back to you." Furia wait a couple of days, wait a couple of days, wait a couple of days. Then they're going to look at teams, right? And okay, so if they're both in a similar position, like you're talking about, maybe we could like argue for the fact that there should have been an online fucking an online best of three or something along those lines. But personally, when you're dealing with this situation, there's no skin off my nose. I don't give a fuck. For me, I have no vested interest in any team. As much as people think when I talk about Renegades, I'm biased towards them, even though I always predict against them and actually critique them harder than every other team.
That's also a type of bias.
A form of bias. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Okay. I don't have a positive bias towards anybody. I don't give a fuck who wins. It doesn't bother me. I just want to watch good Counter-Strike, just so people are aware. I don't care. I don't get paid more if a team wins. So, hey, I just want to watch good CS. In this situation, I feel like if you're going to respond in the manner that Singularity did, and you juxtapose that to the post that Furia made and saying like, once we make commitments, we stick to them, this, that, and the other, you look at those two attitudes and you just go, I know Furia didn't accept the invitation, and Luminosity of the team who went through, but you look at those two approaches from like a perspective of the outside looking in at which one of these two teams looks professional, and it's like, what the fuck are we even like dealing with here? You have one team who is looking like they're fucking stand-up squad, you know, with morals in the right place. And then you have another team. Let me just read you a section of this fucking post. Okay, we just came across the news that the EPL spot held by Rogue has been gifted to Luminosity based on ESL ranking. Luminosity have a stable roster for the past months, and them being the strongest candidate to complete the NA lineup. Now, this is where the fact that I'm sure that a child probably took over the keyboard at this point and started mashing his face while throwing toys out of his pram. Okay, this is how I read this. This might not be how it comes across, but it does sound like a bunch of snarky bullshit. Here we go. It's like I'm arguing, you know, with a chick over something. Like we're having a fight on like a fucking Friday night out, and I've been texting a girl that I shouldn't have been or some shit. Last time we checked, we had been the team to lose the decider match against Rogue for that exact spot in the EPL. Last time we checked, we had the same core members ever since October 2018 when we signed Guerrilla Gang roster. And then in brackets there's some other nonsense. But it just reads like pathetically in my mind. It reads like fucking nonsense. It's like, if you want to make a statement, the decision's done. By making a post like that, you're not getting anything changed. You just make yourself look like a bunch of fucking idiots. If you want to come out and say, look, we're very disappointed with this, this is why we think this was a bad decision, you try and like paint your side of the story, nothing's going to change. Like, people have to realize that. But if you want to make a statement to make yourself feel better, don't make yourself look like a fucking idiot in the process.
But you can still understand the frustration just because
of course
it doesn't really seem like the best solution, obviously. Like, I wouldn't say that them losing, well, I guess them losing the spot to Rogue, the actual EPL spot like initially, before Rogue got removed because they didn't have a roster. I guess that's a fair point. I guess that would have been one way to solve this. But then again, like Luminosity, the actual qualification would have been through MDL, right? Where, like I said, both teams went third to fourth. So whatever you could do, like a match between them, that would be the best case scenario for sure. But yeah, just in general, like I understand the frustration just because there definitely was a better solution, unless, yeah, like I said, unless I'm missing something and one of these teams just couldn't have played a rematch or whatever. Then yeah, I don't know. It just seems weird from both ESL and from Singularity and how they approached the response to that.
We obviously don't have all the information on what was going on behind the scenes, but it feels like, or I feel like you look at these teams anyway, and it feels so like weak. Like I would like to see this Pro League side of the world, either they get all the Brazilian teams, they get all the South American teams, and they put them, like, you have two groups of just South American teams. Because right now, in Group A we had INTZ, in Group B is all North American teams. In Group C is MIBR and Luminosity, and then obviously Group D is made up of Daytona, Denial, etc., which are all South American teams. If you just put MIBR, Luminosity, INTZ, and Furia, and then you mixed that with Group D across, and you had two teams that were South American groups, two groups of South American groups, then coming out of that, you would probably have MIBR and Furia, most likely, right? Then you would have good teams going through, and that means that you'd put Envious, Cloud9 in the other groups we were talking about. You push them in somewhere along those lines. You maybe knock out one of these lower seeded American teams, and then it actually looks kind of competitive. But I understand why they're doing it. It's because they live and compete in North America, so that's why they're part of the North American Pro League. That's why Renegades get to be there. That's why the fucking, what are they called? The South Africans get a chance to be in the Mount Juliet and stuff. Because
ATK.
Yeah, are they even living in America still?
Currently, I think they're not there. As far as I know, they flew back to sign for this new org when they left Denial, and now they're ATK. And I know actually they played something. They played something online in their qualifier for Cologne, so I think they're in NA again.
By the way, I kind of cocked it up. Actually, the MDL didn't really decide anything. Like, the relegation was played 5 months ago or something, which was when this spot went to Rogue, and that's not the MDL. That's how they got into MDL season 30 rather than the other way around.
That is also deciding something on a qualifier from 5 months ago.
Yeah, that's the one weird part about it, right? Like, to make that argument. But sure, originally they would have, if Rogue, basically, if this happened the month after the qualifier, at the start of the year, if Rogue got disbanded at the start of the year, I'm pretty sure Singularity would have made it through, actually. Instead, just because the qualifier and its implication that Singularity were the third team in.
If Singularity was some great, amazing, up and coming team, then they would have gotten the spot. Now they're both floating somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and
just merit wise, based on how both teams look, yes, I agree. But then again, if you have a qualification system, then you should probably follow it in order to replace some teams if necessary, right? I can definitely see the frustration there, to be honest.
For me, however, I get that, and I made a tweet. Was it this morning? Did I do it yesterday? I don't know. I tweeted something, and it was about the relegation format for Pro League, because I don't know what it is, and I don't know if they've even decided what it is just yet, or maybe they're waiting to roll it out once the group stage finishes. But for me, right now, at least in the European side of things, there's a real opportunity to have a great relegation system that will allow a lot more teams moving up into the Pro League, because I think there's a lot of weak teams in Pro League right now. And I think there's a lot of teams in the Mountain Dew League right now who should probably be in the Pro League. Just, you can't say that, obviously it's a long process to get to that point. Now, what I suggested was the bottom 4 teams, so the teams who come last in every single group, play off against the top 3 teams, is what I said, from Mountain Dew League, and then have a wildcard team. Now, that wildcard team could also be from the Mountain Dew League. If they're a team, like Ents or Vitality, who doesn't make top 4, for example, in Mountain Dew League for whatever reason. And people got all up in arms when the VP thing happened, right? There's so many double standards out there at the moment. It's fucking ludicrous. But then people are like, oh, why is Vitality not in? Why is Ents not in? Well, because the qualification system to actually get into Pro League is very difficult now. But I think that, let's say, for example, use Mouse Sports. If Mouse Sports weren't already in the Pro League, and then their roster completely disintegrated and they got called fucking Rat Trap instead of Mouse Sports, right? With this same roster. And then they would have to go through multiple different seasons to even have a shot of playing in the Pro League. That would fucking suck, because they're probably going to be a top 10 team like we just established. Yep. If you talk the system I'm saying and you grab a wild card, oh fuck, look at this team that just formed, they've come from nowhere and they're top 10 in the world. You want to be able to bring them in for the opportunity to qualify. You don't just want to throw them straight in the league. You just bring them in with the opportunity. And I think just because the open circuit nature of Counter-Strike, you need to have that. The rigidity of having the league so cotton to, oh, well, you have Mountain Dew League, and that means if you're playing Mountain Dew League, that's the only way you can move up or move down. I think that is good to have the structure, but you need to have an opportunity to slightly bend that occasion when it makes sense. You need to have a chance to look at the rules and go, okay, well, fuck, let's say Astralis weren't in Pro League. What the fuck? everybody would want Charles to be in Pro League, right? So it's one of those cases where I think it needs to be different things need to be considered going forward. And also, if you look at what Bolts replied to the Singularity tweet with, it was the fact that they 2-0'd them in late March in a DreamHack Masters Dallas qualifier quite severely. So I understand we're talking about merit, of what they did in the progression stages, but the most recent match between them was them getting blown out of the water. So I don't know.
I mean, there's also the thing that just as orgs, if the teams aren't really just like a similar level, you don't know who to invite. Obviously, ESL aren't going to say this, but like Luminosity, Singularity on Twitter, 10,000 followers. Luminosity on Twitter, 220,000 followers. And as well, a Brazilian team, and we know how much that means in terms of viewership and people tuning in. Like, from that point, it also makes sense. So
it definitely makes sense popularity-wise, sure.
I mean, for them, it definitely makes sense. So, and I can't blame them. In the end, we need these tournaments to actually have viewers for them to function, for the circuit to go on. But yeah, just back to the point about promotion. Like ESCA and the whole system used to be a lot more rigid. They did add like, I think they're called the Climber Cups, for like any team can now play them and then go into ESCA Advanced or ESCA MDL even, just like from one, usually it'll take you like 2 years to go through, not 2 years, at least a year to go through from open, then you maybe skip 1 or 2 and then you go another season in Advanced or
well, you have a potential to get invited to MDL as far as I know.
Yeah, but one of the issues
still need
always
season.
Yeah, always an issue for me was ESCA MDL has a single elimination playoff bracket. And that doesn't make sense, especially if you have 3 teams going into the latter part. If you have 3 teams going into the latter part, which is the Global Challenge playoffs relegation for ESL Pro League, then you should really have double elimination brackets, just because people can play each other in the first. And the quarterfinals go out and have no chance to go further, even though in theory they could be the 2 best teams. So, and things like that could then resolve if someone pulls out or stuff like that. You'd have a better ranking of the whole playoffs. But it's just some of these things that ESL, in my opinion, should work on. And you shouldn't have like this season already played out. Like Space Soldiers they finished last. Can they play next season of Pro League? How will the relegation work? No one knows. Like, how can they be selling themselves to a organization if they don't know what their status in the league is? So they could essentially be totally eliminated, and they don't even, maybe they have been told something, but like the public doesn't know. And things like that should really be decided before teams get into the situation, and then we can, Astralis finished last, okay, we won't have direct demotion for this season.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of fuckery that can go on. I'm not saying it is going on, but it allows you to kind of play with some of these situations after they happen.
There's always, it allows for the suspicion, at least that's what the problem is. And we saw the same thing with previous seasons of Pro League, right? When they expanded the and basically like gave Virtus Pro multiple chances to qualify and just keep them in the league and stuff like that. We obviously don't know that was happening, but it was happening, and it was happening mid-season, not at the start of it, like before any results actually came in. It actually happened after the season was played out. So there's a history of ESL doing this with Pro League, and that's not great for sure.
Yeah, I don't actually, like I meant when I talked about the relegation, I'm not sure if they've decided or not. It's just what we know publicly, right?
Yeah.
And what we know publicly, at least what from I can find, is there hasn't been announced yet. It may have been, we don't know, so we can only speculate. One of the good things that we get to do here. So I guess we looked at group, we haven't looked at Group B yet for North America. 1 second, let me bring that up.
Oh, that's the thing we mentioned with Cloud9 and MIBR, right?
Yeah, that was Group C. So Group B is Complexity, Ghost, Liquid, and Lazarus, which is Lazarus, yeah, with Swag. So that was the team which was meant to go to Sydney, but then they didn't get the slot because it was only Swag on the roster or something. I don't know exactly what happened.
It was Swag and Zelsis and 3 players that then got signed by E United.
Vanity, Yeah.
Vanity, Food, and Marquee. I think that's the three.
Yeah. So with this group right here, I think it's pretty clear who the standout name is. Liquid. We already spoke about that in the master beta segment. And then it's just a battle for second and third, right? Complexity with the stand-in of Jordan. He's obviously played with them recently, so it shouldn't be too much difficulties there plugging and playing with him. Very serviceable player. But for Ghost and Lazarus, I guess they're not unknown entities, but I'd actually put Ghost in the position, at least in my mind, for being a contender in this group.
Yeah, especially Complexity with a stand-in. Lazarus, I'm not really sold on. It seems like this, I don't know, bunch of players from all over, like decent players, but I just don't see them meshing together. It's probably them being in all different like jerseys when you look at the HLTV.
It looks a bit
Yeah,
nasty,
literally
doesn't it?
everybody.
That
Smite
might
doesn't
just
have
like
a jersey,
mentally
Subros
throwing me
has
off.
Ghost. Dapper has United. Yeah, that's true.
But I'm just like bullshitting now. But we didn't see them play at all. So let's.
Who's in game leading in that team?
They
by
did
the way?
play
Is
with
it Dapper.
They did play under the Swole Patrol team. What did you say?
Who's in game leading in that team? Is it Dapper or?
I have no idea.
I literally
That's
have no
also-
idea at all.
Like
That's the
who's
thing, like,
opting for this team? Is it Infinite? Swag?
Yeah, this is a rough team to get it.
I never saw like. I don't know. I have no idea.
That's the thing. Like that's how little we know about this team, basically.
I guess
Like,
what we can do
exist
is
for a month.
to probably close out the Pro League chat, because we're going to get out of a lot of information very quickly, is what do you guys think about the round robin situation? Because originally when this was announced, it was meant to be GSL groups, but fun factoid of information is that the WESA, the players, apparently, this is what I've been told, as part of that vote or whatever, voted to have a round robin as opposed to GSL in the group stages. How do you guys feel about that? Yeah. I don't mind it. I actually think it's okay because it makes it in my head feel more like a league.
Like a league, yeah. I understand.
I mean, if
from
it
that
was
perspective.
GSL and 3 teams going through, would be kind of literally you play like 2 games and that's it, right?
Oh yeah, that's also well. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's
Like
kind
you
of hard
don't
to
have
make
to
it
play the
another way.
decider. So it's
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like there were some. So I don't know. I think it was the Epicenter, one of them, that had the GSL with 3 teams going forward, and it was kind of weird, I must say. That doesn't really function properly, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be 3 matches instead of 6, basically.
I think they would have probably played out games anyway.
Well, yeah, because of the
right.
matchups played later, right? But like nobody wants
Yeah.
to watch matches proceeding.
Well, now, like on both days, so yesterday everything was still up in the air for the North American region, and it was as well for Europe when we kicked things off, right? Because if North were able to beat Mouse Sports, and we assumed Optic were going to beat Space Soldiers, we were going to have a 3-way tie, right? So there was still a lot of opportunity for things to go down in that regard. It's just a different. The payoff is obviously a lot longer, so it's further down the line. But the groups themselves can still be interesting in who's going to get that automatic spot, right? And then when we come back for the secondary groups, the round 2 groups, then it's a lot more cutthroat, right? Like it's either you're making it or you're not. Whereas right now, we're still in a grey zone with like North and Optic, for example, who get an opportunity. But I like the fact that ideally, in my mind, I would prefer it as it used to be in terms of everybody plays everybody. But I would prefer best of 3s. But this is the format we have. This is serviceable for everybody, and it seems to be the players seem happy that they get to play on LAN. So there's the positives there.
Yeah, I don't mind. Like in theory, it works well for organizations. In advance when you're playing each match, which doesn't happen with GSL. You have the schedule like a week in advance. You can schedule all the social media posts, get your fans in, and all of that stuff. So that's kind of okay. And with the 3 teams going through, that also makes sense. Even though it does go into some like weird situations, we're not really used to these. Like NRG going through in first place. I'm not sure like when they finished the game, it was like, did we go through? Are we first? You don't really know what the result of the. You know the result of the match, but you don't know the final standing right away, and that kind of takes away from the whole excitement in my eyes. Like we had similar situations with the Blast groups. It's you win the game or you tie the game, and you're like, okay, so what does this now mean? And then you need like 5 minutes to figure out what actually happened. Did you go through? Did you not? that's my biggest flaw of the round robin.
Sure. I think that obviously because we get instantly gratified by the majority of tournaments we watch, right? Which are quite clear cut. We go into an event, there's a group stage, you progress or you go home. You get to the bracket stage, you fucking win or you go home, right? We get that every week. And the Blast thing, a lot of people critique that format negatively recently just because things have blown up. I've always been one thinking that there's definitely room in the calendar for different things, and Blast does a very good job entry level for newer viewers. It's always a fantastic experience in the arena, and you have the big names there. The group stage situation right here for Pro League, the way that they're doing this is now, in my mind, it feels with the way that they've done it, still feels like a league, and it's something different. Right, I think here's an opportunity where lower teams can actually make their mark, because some of the bigger names might get lazy or take teams for granted in this situation, and that there is, at least historically, a way for people to move up. It doesn't feel completely closed on now. Obviously, we just spoke about the relegation, but we don't really know. I don't know. I'm happy with all the changes. It just, anything offline, Counter-Strike wise, is good in my books.
I mean, my main argument against the round robin is exactly what happened in Group A. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to a team getting eliminated. It's sure it still led to a team going to the finals, actually, like the deciding spot. But at least it didn't eliminate anybody. But that's my problem. The tiebreakers of round robin are always kind of like, though I don't want to say unfair, just because sure there's a system, they know about it going in, so they kind of agree with it. So that I can't call it unfair. It's just, it's not really a good metric. Even a maps difference is not really a good metric to separate two teams from each other, because maps won don't even matter in series. As long as you won the series, that's what should matter. So that's just generally my argument against round robin, and that's kind of what sucks every single time that we see it in play. Almost every time anyway.
I get it. I definitely can understand that from a perspective. The older I get, the less upset by these kind of things. Like, no, it's not that. It's like I look at it and I go, okay, well, if they know coming into it that there's 1 to 9 ways that the tiebreakers are decided, and if they're ever going to find themselves in this position, then maybe they shouldn't pick into a nuke or a map that they might get blown out of the water on. And you have to, pick maps kind of different, and that does change the approach. But
but you don't think about the thing is, like, even knowing about the system, you don't think about it that way. And I'm not sure you should really think about it that way. You really should think about how you win this series and then go on to the next one and think the same way, rather than think on a global scale of okay, we need to win both maps here, otherwise we go out and stuff like that. That's just not how Counter-Strike is meant to be approached.
This happens all over the world in
I can see why it's happening.
Sporting elements and stuff. So it's kind of just the way it's going to unfold. I think we can move forward now from Pro League. I think we've finished with that for now.
Yep.
The next little thing to talk about is the event that was going on. Was it in France or was it in Belgium?
Belgium.
Okay,
Belgium,
well, they're close enough.
Belgium.
They basically speak the same language, right?
Well, part of Belgium is.
Some of them, yeah.
It's close enough. Like I said, English is the language we need. So click on over to this, buddy. Okay, if you didn't catch the opening ceremony for this event, I think that you should. So let's talk about that stuff to kick things off. They went for the classic DJ approach, dressed up as a counter-terrorist, I guess. And they had a woman.
I think it was the terrorist from Vertigo, the robber.
Yeah. Okay, so they went with somebody dressed up as a character from Counter-Strike. They also had a woman who couldn't sing, trying to sing. I think she was lip-syncing. I'm not sure.
Yes.
And
then
they thought
partially the thing is, like, you could still hear her voice like behind the other
track,
team, which is fucking why even go through that then? Like, that made
just
it
play
also
Britney Spears or something.
Yeah.
And then
maybe
actually
one more time, I don't know.
Worse than that was not the whole DJ bullshit. Was actually the thing that got me the most what the fuck was the sniper cam. So those who might be familiar with watching these events, you might realize they do like kiss cam and stuff where they, like they had one where it was like Pasha biceps cam at the major or some shit like that. This was a literal screen with a circle was the only thing you could see and the crosshairs of a thing, and it said sniper cam. and it was going around the audience. So the producer, I think, can bring that up for everybody at home, just so you can see how fucking ridiculous this
so
is.
you can all enjoy it.
How many people does this go through, right? Before, but like, oh yeah, that seems fine. That seems like something we'll just put on. Like what?
Not the most.
It's just so fucked up, man.
Not the most well-produced event, was it?
Nah, fuck. I mean, I was just sitting there.
I wish people could hear our producer just like wailing in the background.
Like as it was going on, like all of this shit happening, I'm like no one will remember the fails.
Stuff. I was muting stuff even like during matches, just because like even the casters, some of them aren't particularly great. But like whenever it went into like an analyst segment or whatever, I just turned it off because it didn't make sense.
Like honestly, if someone knows the song, like follow me, Magic Destination, please link it to me here in chat or in Twitter, because it's been in my fucking brain for the last 5 days. Literally wake up and all I can hear is that DJ guy like follow me. It's so good, so fucking good. I want to listen to it, but without the interrupted auto-tune issue that they had. So if someone knows what it is, I didn't try to Shazam it though. I should probably. Brilliant opening ceremony. It was out of this world.
Did you see the AR that they were doing, the augmented reality and shit?
Look,
with like
that wasn't too bad though. That
well, could have been worse.
It looked very bad.
Yeah, it's like the quality.
Why did they spend all of that money on those stuff? Like those like custom HUD, all of that
custom
shit.
HUD.
Like,
I don't understand why people just like do custom HUDs just to do a custom HUD. Like it didn't bring anything else. It just literally like changed the look of it, changed the design, and that's it. Not bringing anything new to the table or anything. Not even improving it. It just looked like a shittier version of the current HUD basically. And that's like I just don't understand why you would even do that. Like, why set yourself apart that way when you can do it so many other ways? I don't understand, man.
All right.
So after all, it is called Mr. E Mysterio. It's not Mystery Mysterio. It's Mr. E Mysterio. Interesting.
Okay.
But someone's found the video, which is brilliant. It's on Spotify.
So I think what we can do is talk about the Counter-Strike that went on there. Now, for those of you who missed it, the teams in attendance were Vitality, G2, Epsilon, Virtus Pro, Sprout, LDLC, Gamer Legion, and Frostfire. Frostfire are a team from, I want to say, Malaysia?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. We had the grand final, which was between Sprout and Vitality, and that's because throughout the group stages, I think it was G2 who fucked up and lost a game they shouldn't. So we had G2 versus Vitality as the semi, and that's probably the biggest takeaway here. Yeah, so the biggest takeaway here is probably just to talk about those two French teams. Maybe we'll shit on all the other teams first, and then we'll talk about the French teams. So let's start with Virtus Pro. Prof, yeah. I know you've got some thoughts about this one.
Is there? Huh?
Did
that cut out or
no? I'm just like what to say. What to say?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have anything to say about
Virtus Pro.
So their results in this event were 16-14 loss to recently formed Gamer Legion, which features Scream, Existence. They've got Nork, the kid from Sweden, in there on the AWP, Hampus, and the last player is HS. And then they lost 2-0 to G2. And the reason they had that opening matchup so early was because G2 lost 16-8 to Epsilon. So VP might feel a little bit hard done by after having to play G2 so early, but regardless of that, I heard some rumors that they were in and out. It wasn't too much of a high event for them in terms of being focused.
Look, they're waiting for that major, IM Katowice, Sydney, events like that get them going. Like this event's like under their standards, so no point in like going hard in practice, like warming up and all that stuff.
/S.
Yeah, so all in all, yeah, I think like if that is true, that they really didn't even put in a lot of work, didn't really try hard for this event, then like what are you waiting for? You're not gonna get like this event, like them being invited to this is just like it's a freebie for them. Like LDLC, obviously this team isn't that good, but they were invited after that IM Chicago result. So Vitality, G2, Sprout, Epsilon, all better teams seemingly than Virtus Pro right now. So you should be happy for actually playing on LAN. Should be pretty excited. But
World ranking number 87.
Not
That's
the case.
Everything that needs to be said.
Not the case.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that team is ever going to get back to a form of glory, at least with a Polish team, unless they buy Ego, or maybe, I think Taz's team is definitely better than them now. So VP, even though they've just tried out a bunch of new players for their fifth, I think they ended up with Veggie.
They won Veggie?
They're not even I think that's who they got, right?
Yeah.
No, that was a stupid joke. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I missed
Veggie,
it.
you know.
Anyway, so I think, we don't need to talk about Frostfire, we don't need to talk about VP. LDLC, it was their debut with their new roster, but I don't think any of us are even remotely excited about that team.
No.
Gamer Legion, similar things in my mind. They're just another run-of-the-mill type squad at this point.
Right, at least there are a couple of exciting players in there, especially
do you want a sad factoid about LDLC?
What is that?
Who had a 1.21 rating in LDLC's like very bad, underwhelming tournament?
Was it Sixer?
It was Sixer.
It actually was Sixer.
1.21 rating. Happy 1.0, and then everyone else like below. And they played against Frostfire and who did they play actually? Give me a second. Frostfire, best of 3, lost 1 map. And
Sprout
lost 3 maps to Sprout, best of 1 and a best of 3. 16-4 first map against Sprout, then 16-6 and 16-10. So they were kind of building. If they played like 5 more maps, they'd win 1. It would be good.
Well, they didn't have a lot of practice going into this, right? They were only recently announced as being a team, but this is like it's the leftovers of the older generation. So we have like the leftovers of the younger generation who are in that team that Haji's in. I forget what they're called. Fuck. How is this eluding me right now?
Isn't it 3D Max? X3D Max?
X3D Max.
Yes,
yeah.
that's the one. So there's like the leftovers of the new generation of French players are in X3D Max, and it feels like the leftovers of the old French scene is in LDLC, like at least players who had an opportunity, right? So Major, we all know that he was playing for Space Soldiers for a while there, but for those of you who don't know his history, he was a 1.6 player, actually used to play with Sixer back in the day. XMS, he had his shot. Happy, obviously, we know how good of a player he was once upon a time.
XMS retired, by the way. He retired. Yes, he said, I'm retiring. Then went to play like Fortnite, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's back in LDLC. Like, who sold LDLC this team?
Here's a fun thing for players. If you're going to announce that you're going to retire, make sure you stay retired. Don't come out and say that you're going to retire and then come back in like 6 months' time for some reason. It's better if that is the case. If you don't have anything else to go to, if you're going to retire from Counter-Strike because you can't get a good team or whatever, just fucking leave it, bro. Just disappear. Just disappear. You don't need to announce to the world that you're retiring. And if you're like maybe, I don't know, fucking Get Right, and you're done with NIP and you know you're going to move into something else, then you can come out, you can say you're retiring. Otherwise, just don't say anything, because you just seem silly after a while. Otherwise, you just, it's better just to keep it quiet. But anyway, G2 and Vitality.
I take this X3D Max team over LDLC any day of the week. And Meyer should have gone to X3D Max, or actually LDLC should have taken X3D Max and just added Meyer to be the in-game leader. It would be something you could get at least a bit excited about, because this is, even the youngster got, Rodin, is just a guy that no one really rates, even in France. So what's the point?
And he was the lowest rated player of the event.
So yeah, we can move on. Chad, take it away.
Okay, so the only game that mattered in the entire tournament was G2 versus Vitality in the semi-final, and it ended up going 3 maps after Shox was able to clutch a 1-on-3 in overtime to secure overpass. And then
overtime, yep.
They got fisted on the last game. So, did you guys have an opportunity to watch much of this? I know it was difficult.
I watched this game at least.
What did you? Because I think, first of all, what did you think about G2? because obviously Amanek has been added.
I saw a lot of the problems that I kind of anticipated, which was with Amanek not having enough freedom in this team, because it did look like he was a little bit more constricted than probably he would have liked to, because he's obviously used to. We talked about this last time, but I'm going to repeat it. He's obviously used to teams giving him the freedom that he wants, doing anything that he wants, and I don't think, based on what I saw, I don't think he's getting this in G2. And he really didn't have a great tournament. Like, he had a great map, the overpass map that they won against Vitality, and that was pretty much it. I saw a couple of their other games. I saw their Gamer Legion game and maybe Epsilon. Yeah.
He had 2 positive ratings. Everything else in the red, and like a lot of 0.6s, and then that like 30 bomb and 1.10 against.
He had 0.66 in a one-sided game that they won against Very BP. So it's just also says something. But that's something that I saw in that Vitality game as well. Even though he actually played a pretty good map, like map 2, I thought that he looked a little bit out of his role. But that's just, yeah. That's about it.
So we have to see more, I guess. They'll be playing in Pro League
I would say
well.
so, because like it also looked like they weren't completely prepared for this. Because that there were some fumbles, like there strategic wise, where people were like running around not sure about smokes. Like particularly Amanek, I saw him kind of running around a little bit confused at times. I'm not entirely sure if it's just like the way G2 operates, because they've obviously not been the best led team with Shox at the helm. And he seems to be kind of emotional about the whole game, not just in game leading. So I'm not sure if it's just down to G2 and their playstyle, or just them not having enough preparation. But that's how it looked to me.
Yeah, I think that Malik definitely has a tough job as the coach of that team, because of how I think nowadays, if you could say it could have been the case all along, but at least how Counter-Strike used to be played in the past, being an emotional leader could actually be a benefit in certain situations. Mainly when you're winning, because of the fact of momentum. But now that Counter-Strike has changed completely, I think within compared to 2015 to now, in its approach and how more isolated duels are, how much better mid-round calling is, how having to think of so many different solutions for individuals. Source used to be throw your smokes and fight, and that was it. You'd win or lose. 1.6 was a little bit more slower in certain situations, but it was the same with, if you did a tactic, that was either win or lose. The mid rounds weren't a thing, like in the same way as they are now. Information gathering, everything. So having Shox as the best player with Kenny, and also the in-game leader, if he's emotional and hard to keep track of, then that is always going to be a detriment to them. But they do have to pull up their socks, because in a couple of days' time they have to play Fnatic, Na'Vi, and Windigo in Group C, the group of death for Pro League. So all in all, do we see for either of these teams space, or at least the idea that maybe Kiyoshima could be a good pickup?
I'm not sure that there's anybody outside of like, well, that's the thing about Major, right? We thought he potentially could have joined G2 when he was out of Space Soldiers, that was at least a possibility, and obviously that didn't happen. I feel like that was kind of the last chance for G2 to get a chance to get an actual in-game leader, rather than just like leave it to Shox, who we just know that he's not completely in it all the time, and after a while he just like gets tired of it. I've been hearing this from French players like so many times that yeah, that's the thing. Like if they actually get a decent in-game leader whose heart is fully in it and who's kind of like made for it, rather than Shox, who just jumps back and forth, then I could see something potentially changing for G2. But other than that, I don't see that.
Just want to reply to someone that says Major speaks French. I'm not sure if it's a joke, but maybe some viewers.
Jesus.
Newer viewer don't know that he actually played in the French scene for his whole life. Like from 1.6, he was always in the French scene, but
he played for much longer in France than he did in Turkey, basically.
He's only of Turkish descent and played for like Space Soldiers from 2016. Like after that TWC win that they won, then he made the move to Space Soldiers, and that actually propelled Space Soldiers. That and getting Calyx was like the
he played
when they
with
actually
Sixer
started competing
back in the day. In Millennium in 1.6.
Yeah. E-Sahara.
E-Sahara, yeah.
That too, yeah.
So
MSX and those guys.
what I wanted to say is that isn't there some talk about Alex actually leading full time for Vitality now?
Oh, is
Because
that?
What?
I know
haven't heard
Nell
that.
tweeted it,
What?
and I
I
saw
don't know about that.
someone else also say that like. Okay.
Well, I guess we're on. We're on. Well, we're on. Okay. So we had a couple of we were trying to copy the production from the event in Belgium, but we failed. We're still doing a better job. So we were basically talking there about Alex potentially taking over the in-game leadership role from MBK over
and then
on
Vitality
the
did asked
roster.
us, so we don't leak
I've not
the
heard about
information.
this, and I literally
haven't
talked
heard
to
about it
NBK
either.
like on the way back from Shanghai. I was on the same flight with him, so I had a pretty good chance.
Interesting.
So that's the.
Can they? Yeah.
I unless this was like a very, very recent development where they just figured, yeah, for this event, fuck it, let's just have Alex lead and see how it goes. I don't see NBK just letting off on that though. I don't think he's in the. I just don't see him being in that position of letting go of in-game leadership, because they've actually looked like they've been improving. Like, sure, not massively, but from event to event, they seem to be improving. So I don't understand.
Yeah,
I don't understand. I don't know what people are laughing about here, but
Lucas is like our producer is laughing
that's the
about
thing.
himself being on stream,
He's-
I guess,
He's been he's made it. He's made the big time.
and also not doing his job and getting Striker on the camera here, but
All right,
and
well,
then laughing
well-
to just go
Well,
off.
while Lucas tries to fix this, I guess unless you guys have anything more to talk about, I think we're probably almost done with this one. Do you want to bring it up? Whatever you wanted to bring up. I can't. I don't have any energy today, Lucas. It's not possible. Today is a Monday. It's like my Saturday. I'm ready. I don't even know what we're doing.
I don't know what we're ready for, but
we're getting surprised.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
How did you manage to do this? How is this
he's
an
had
actual
time.
thing?
No wonder OBS crashed. The cunt's too busy fucking playing around with that bullshit that he's doing his job. So that's why we're in this position. So we're going to move on. That's a fantastic way to close this down.
This episode is over. What are we doing?
We can quickly talk about Rio and Copenhagen games, and then we'll shut her down. Didn't get any interesting questions coming through
We
on
will
Twitter.
get shut down. You mean?
Yeah, it's probably the case as well. Okay, so let's start with Copenhagen Games. Another team, I believe it was Heroic, has pulled out. So Optic pulled out, Heroic pulled out, and now they're left with basically nothing. I think Fours are there. Who else is there? I was having a look just before. Is it Tricked?
Tricked Epsilon Sprout, Fours.
So
Easy event for Fours,
yeah.
boys. Easy event for Jerry.
Do we expect Fours to
Jerry.
be that good as good offline as they're online? I don't know.
Oh, and Sprout
I
are
don't
there.
know.
So maybe that we could have talked a bit more of these two teams who were at the Belgium event.
Thing is, I haven't seen enough of them, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just this is now getting into the realms of this is teams and individuals who I don't know where to put them anymore. Tricked is a feeder team. Sprout don't feel like a feeder team too big by any means. I think maybe Syrison. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think that him as a AWP player, he looks okay. With some of the games I've watched, I haven't watched an awful lot of his. Epsilon, Keto for a while was having some crazy games of CS, but every time I tune into one of their matches, I watched them against Wendigo the other day. That Brokey guy is it Brokey or Borky?
Brokey.
Brokey. He was like fucking doing some shit that was good. I don't know. Like they're teams that I can't place them. You know, they're not of any. They're not noteworthy. They don't have like an individual that stands out to keep them above. Like there's nothing exciting, unfortunately.
Look, this has turned from like a tier 2 event to like a tier 3 event basically. Like without the likes of Heroic and well, Heroic
There are
Heroic are like
no top 20 teams invited.
not
Tricked
anymore.
is there to be like the Danish team. They're actually number 38 now, so that's probably like their peak of recent.
Fours are number 30 now. Yeah, it's just like a borderline top 30 event, and obviously from
it's
the
gonna be an
in the
interesting-
qualifier, there are not that many
interesting-
great teams.
Yeah, interesting event for these teams. At the same time, I'm like, there are people obviously that follow the tier 2 and 3 more than me, like any of us do, and they could probably give us more details about, like, these are also interesting teams. They have their own styles, players that stand out on their level, but just like nothing that like reaching into the top 15 really, at least not for now. Maybe Sprout finished second at the Charleroi thing. Maybe if they win this, then we can see them starting to build. Maybe they can contest big, because big isn't looking that hot recently. Maybe that's a thing that we can see starting from this event. And there's obviously the BYOC part, which then feeds 4 teams into this event. So 4 more teams will be joining the teams you have here in the main part. And someone always pops up and someone makes a name for themselves at Copenhagen Games. Like last year, it was the Imperial guys, right? They won.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they came from the qualifier, I think. So maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. The year before it was the ANJ and the Danish Singularity team, actually. Yeah. So they kind of made a name for themselves. So I think it's a cool event to kind of keep track of, but not really. It's not going to change anything in the top scene.
Sure.
Yep,
all right.
pretty much.
Well, the most exciting part about Rio, we already touched on this a little bit, is the fact that Vertigo is going to get played. So with all the teams there, now we know that who's fucking taken their spot. Who took Furia's spot? Not Furia's spot. Who took Luminosity's spot?
INTZ.
That's the one. Tip of my tongue. Apparently they want it to be pronounced Ints.
Ints. Yes.
Yeah. There's like they ask us to do these things, and then you sit there and you go, fuck, I'm not going to do that. It's like MIBR didn't want us to refer to them as made in Brazil for a while there because they didn't have 5 Brazilians. And I was like, what are you talking about?
It's
literally your name.
That's the team name. What do you mean?
They actually asked you to do that? What the fuck?
It's fucking wild. Anyway, this event, the most exciting thing about it, I think, obviously Vertigo has to be number 1. And Furia still going fills me with a bit of hope that we might see it come out with some cool strategies earlier. What do you guys think about this event as a whole?
I definitely think Furia could be the one to pick up Vertigo early on. They just seem like the type, you know. I could definitely see that happening. Outside of that, actually, I'm not sure which one of these teams would be up for Vertigo. I'm trying to think about the map pools these teams have. I just don't have it like in my mind completely. Because obviously we don't see these events. We don't see these teams on a regular basis.
I'm pretty sure Argo played the Vertigo. Let's see. Yeah, they played one, but they got smashed on it, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, even them playing it will just like make other teams who didn't play it veto it against them. So that helps, I guess.
It would be so disappointing if no one actually played Vertigo. I mean,
I wouldn't be
surprised.
surprised.
Let's say Furia wants to play it. If no one else wants to play it, it won't be played. Like, people just veto it all the time. Hope that's not the case, though. I hope that's not the case.
I think when you look at the names here, just for those who might not be familiar, Group A has Avangard, United, Furia, and INTZ, and Group B has Ago, Sharks, Valiance, and W7M. So the names that stick out to me off the bat are Avangard, Furia, United, and then in Group B, Ago and Valiance, right? So there's actually some decent names here in terms of a competitive nature. Sharks, W7M, and INTZ are, they have skilled individuals, they have players that can get it done, but they're just not cohesive as units compared to the other teams there. I think there's quite a stark contrast between them and the others. Be cool to see Valiance back at it again. I think that they're an exciting prospect of a team. Hunter, Esperanto, those kind of guys. For me, I actually think that Group A is quite stacked compared to Group B. Really, when you look at these two, so it's a little bit unfortunate that not all 3 of Avangard, United, and Furia will be able to make it through. Ago, they were in the grand final of WSG against Windigo not long ago, and it's been a long time since we've seen Valiance in an offline environment, right? So cool little storylines for teams budding for constant positions within the top 20 here, I would say.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what DreamHack Opens have become. But I mean that's not even a recent development. It's been that case for a while, that we always have these like borderline top 20, between top 20 to top 30 teams most of the time. some of them below, obviously, like we see with like the likes of W7M, and then teams like that. This event particularly is fairly low on that spectrum. But just in general, yeah, like you say, we've got a bunch of teams that we can actually be kind of excited about and potentially see as teams that could make the move up in the next couple of months, and even on the back of like a success at a DreamHack Open. That's what these events now are.
Alrighty. Well,
I don't have anything to add. I think
I was going to say it's 10:45, right? CEST right now.
Jesus.
So we've managed to talk a leg off a chair or two in that time frame. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls who have joined us, there was a couple of questions that came through, but we've run over by 45 minutes here. So we're gonna shut this one down. The next one will be on Monday the 20th, I believe. Is it the 20th, Monday?
22nd.
22nd, Easter Monday. If you are
okay.
of
Yeah,
the Easter
so
celebrating on that date kind of a guy.
we should have a podcast going on then, and maybe one towards the end of that week as well before Sydney. People traveling to Sydney are going to have a couple of issues to do with time zone wise, so we'll try and get out one early next week and maybe one towards the end of next week. So you can also get the podcast audio at anchor.fm/HLTV. It's just HLTV, right?
Yes.
Just HLTV.
Yeah. Head over there, you can get it everywhere, fucking Google, Spotify, iTunes, all that fucking nonsense. We'll upload this as soon as we can. And thank you for joining us. We've confirmed some shit tonight. Goodbye.